Hemima Jodina says interventions in the Mfuleni municipality to address sewage spillage into the Vaal system are yielding results. For SAFM News, Kimudupima Khalemeli.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Proteas women gear up for T20 World Cup with skills camp in Tshwane. Simbini turns his focus to relay race, and Adi gets All Blacks captaincy. More details at 3:30.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And I could be asking you, are you ready? Not ready to run in an Olympic race, ready for 3 hours of the National Pulse. Great to connect with you as always, right? So wherever you may be in the country, hot weather, cold weather, on the beach, at work, at school, driving home from school, taking kids up and down, or maybe going to universities, or maybe you're a lecturer, whatever it is, or whether you're listening on the SABC Plus app, on streaming live, whatever. Welcome to the show. This is the National Pulse. And my name is Ashraf Garda. And as always, we have lots to talk about every single day of the week. But certainly on a Monday, we're going to pick up on the issue of the Pretoria Girls High story from a different take in terms of the Department of Education, in fact, wanting to have their very own disciplinary committee or ruling on this issue. We're going to talk about that. There's a beer house, so it's called a beer house in Long Street in Cape Town. If you're from there, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. What I understand is going to be shut down. And the reason it's going to be shut down is because of they can't carry on with being extorted anymore. So extortion having a victim of its own. John Carney, by the way, we'll chat to him as part of our feature where we celebrate winning South Africans coming up around 10 to 6 before we wrap up the show. In between all of that, there's more, as you may be aware. There's an issue in Bangladesh. Their Prime Minister has fled the country. What happens next? What happens in Mali? They've expelled the Wagner Group. And you may know more about the Wagner Group and their influence that they have in that region. But how about this one? First things first, the issue of the Department of Water and Sanitation. They had a briefing today. Lots to consider around what they do and what they don't do, including who actually is in charge when it comes to water supply in our country. So all of that to consider. Let's start with the That's My Point feature. So have you been following what's been going on in England? Let me recap. 3 young people were knifed to death at an event, right? Horrific story. I understand a dance class by a man that's in sort of Southport region, right? Horrific. No excuses. You cannot defend it no matter what the situation is. The allegations very quickly turned to one person to say he's of Asian descent, then he's of Muslim descent, and then he's an immigrant. And then what happens next? This huge mobilization done to a large degree on social media to get to people similar to this person who apparently alleged did this knifing, right? So they stormed sort of outside mosques in some parts of the UK, then attacked Muslim communities, then extended that to all immigrant communities or many immigrant communities. And I understand now it's a case of like they've smashed up places, they've smashed up homes, windows, they've smashed stores, they've looted stores. And the bottom line is this, it's less even about the one person who they alleged did the nasty deed or the horrific deed. And I understand it's more about just for what many of these white, and I say white because that's the angle they're following, white British people, are seeing all these immigrants and their role that they have in their countries. It's more about getting them out than anything else. Understand now, in terms of the allegations with that one person, he's not an immigrant. In fact, he's born in the UK and understand he's not of Muslim descent either. So that's fallen by the wayside now. But what has happened is a bigger momentum to get rid of people. And it's gone to the point where the Prime Minister has stepped in and saying they'll never get away with this. But clearly a country is being made ungovernable to a large degree, okay? So here's my point to all of this, and it's a lesson to all of us. I always think about examples like Rwanda, even in South Africa that we've had before in the pre-apartheid era, and then Yugoslavia as it broke up, right, between Serbians and Bosnian Muslims, but many other parts of the world as well. The level of othering takes on its own nasty, vicious momentum. And when you start it, you attack one person, you then label the person to a tribe or a group or a nationality, then you attack the entire nationality or grouping or the country, and before you know it, it can't stop. And the consequences are devastating. And that's what England or the United Kingdom are experiencing right now. So my thoughts to you and to me, to all of us, when you have an issue with one person, pick on the issue that you have with that person. Play the ball. Don't label that person and link that person to an entire grouping. So the knife attack is horrific, and say that for what it is. It's horrific, it's unacceptable. But to label entire community or other communities because of that one person is a no-no. And as you can now see, an entire country really is at risk. I mean, there's so much social discord in that part of the world. And the question we should all be thinking about, that ultimately everyone wants the same thing. We want justice and we want peace. And we want to live as one, as human beings who all aspire to the very, very same things that we all want, isn't it? Food, water, family, safe place, a sense of happiness. Well, that's my point. What's yours?
SA Women Struggles Journal. #Women's Month. Celebrating 30 years of democracy towards women's development, SAFM celebrates the power, resilience and brilliance of women. It's Women's Month, and we're honoring the incredible contributions of women in our communities, our workplaces and our homes. Join SAFM in recognizing the achievements, strengths and spirit of women everywhere. Let's uplift and empower each other today and every day. SAFM, leading the Women's Month conversation. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, I have my point around what's happening in the United Kingdom. What's your point? And you can share your opinion. 086 000 2032. WhatsApp, text, voice notes. 0614 104 107. You got that? 0614 104 107. You can also tweet it out on social media. So tag SAFM Radio on the X platform. Do the same on Facebook. Tag me as well. Use the hashtag The National Pulse. And while you're at it, not just airing your own opinion, because what I'm interested in is not just your opinion. Of course I am. But I'm interested in how do we resolve, how do you maintain a peace in a country with different interests, different ethnicities, but also different socio-economic issues, but understand and get them to think as one, that ultimately, no matter what their issues are, you cannot explode as a people and say it's okay as what's happening. And then people become very, very venomous about that. And let's not in South Africa gloat about that, because it's something we need to be very aware of. And I say gloat because often, people in Europe and in other parts think about us and say maybe we need help. But no, it's just time for us to be sober about it and say be aware and be very careful in terms of what we do. So I'll get your thoughts on this issue. Let's start then with some of the big issues we'll talk about today. And one of them is the issue of water and sanitation. So early on today, the Water and Sanitation Ministry briefed the media on departmental plans and priorities. During the briefing, and this is interesting, the Minister, Pemi Majodian, revealed that since being sworn in, that's 3rd of July, remember, her office has been inundated with calls and messages from the public and local and provincial political leaders regarding challenges around water and sanitation services, particularly at local level. Now, she made it clear, this is really important, that only the municipalities can resolve South Africa's water issue. So what then should the municipalities do? What then is the role of the department in doing all of this? Let's find out more about the media briefing and beyond with Sean Phillips, the Director General at the Department of Water and Sanitation. So DG, good chatting to you, and thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Let's start with this, maybe 3 key bullet points in terms of some of the key issues that were raised at the briefing.
Thank you, Ashraf. Firstly, the Minister indicated that the delivery of water services is a municipal function, and that people's first point of call when there's problems with municipal water service and sanitation delivery should be their municipalities. She wasn't saying that municipalities are responsible for addressing all the water issues in South Africa. So in the Constitution and in the legislation, it gives certain roles to the national government and roles to the local government. At national level, our job is to protect the water resources, to manage the use of water and to issue water use licenses. And then we also put a lot of effort into developing large national water resource infrastructure such as dams. But the actual distribution of water at a local level in terms of the Constitution is a municipal function. And that's where most of the problems are currently.
Okay, so to get clarity on this, she's not saying it's not your problem. She's just saying there's a process, and the process for all of us is to go to local municipalities first. But ultimately, that will still circle back to national level in some form or the other, right?
Yes, that's correct. So she was saying that residents in municipalities who have problems with their water services that are provided by their municipalities must hold their municipalities accountable, and they must their first point of call should be the municipalities, the municipal leadership, to explain what they're doing to address the issues.
Okay.
We have a role to play in terms of monitoring and regulating municipalities, and as you'll remember, we issued our Bloom, Green and No Drop reports last year, which gave an indication to the public of the state of municipal water and sanitation services. We also provide grants to municipalities to address infrastructure backlogs, and we also provide them with other advice as to how they should improve. But we can't, the point that she was making is that we can't go in, legally we can't go and take over a municipal water and sanitation function if it's not working in the municipalities. The municipality needs to fix it. We can't go in and fix what is their responsibility.
Okay, I hear you. So that's one point, right? Let's just stay with that, however, in terms of what then are the thoughts of the ministry and the minister regarding what seems to be perpetual water shortage issues. In fact, it's becoming a bigger issue for many of us than even load shedding. And load shedding, as you're also aware, is a drastic issue in terms of its impact on South African life.
Ashraf, water is different to electricity in that with electricity, as you know, there's a national electricity grid, and there's been load shedding with electricity to protect the grid when demand has exceeded what Eskom can supply. Water is very different. It's very localized. So in many areas of the country, there aren't shortages of water, but in some areas of the country, there are currently shortages of water. So, for example, in eThekwini, one of the reasons why there's been water supply disruptions is because there simply isn't enough water there currently. And we are developing the Umkomazi Dam to address that problem. Similarly, in Gauteng, there's been increasing water supply disruptions because the population has grown hugely, and the Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 project has started late. That project is now underway, and it's going to supply a lot more water in the future to Gauteng. But in the meantime, there isn't sufficient water to meet all the demand for water in Gauteng, and that is why there's been increasing water supply disruptions in Gauteng.
Okay, I hear that. Let's move on to other issues, maybe 2 or 3 other important issues that you'd like to raise that was raised today.
Well, we also the minister also emphasized that South Africa is a water-scarce country, one of the 30 most water-scarce countries in the world. And yet the average consumption of water per capita in South Africa is much higher than the international average. So if we're going to not have water shortages in the future, if water is not going to become a constraint to economic growth in future, as a country we need to do much better in terms of treating water as a scarce resource. And we need to bring down our average consumption of water so this is at least closer to the international average, but it should be lower than the international average.
Okay.
He also said that... Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
She also said that in addition to using water more sparingly, we are going to be... we have quite a number of projects currently underway around the country worth more than over 100 billion rand to develop additional dams and to raise dam walls to make more water available. And then she also indicated in addition to doing that, we are going to be promoting diversification of the water mix, more use of groundwater in a sustainable way, reuse of wastewater from wastewater treatment works at municipalities. So she emphasized that there's 3 or 4 things we need to do to ensure water security and fewer water disruptions in South Africa. The first is to build these additional projects. The second is for municipalities to reduce their leaks in their distribution systems and to maintain their water infrastructure better. The third is to diversify the water mix. And the fourth is for everyone to use water more sparingly. And she emphasized that if we do all four of those things, then we can have a future in South Africa where there aren't water shortages and where water won't be a constraint to economic growth.
Okay, just to wrap up then, what for you would be you or your department, right? What would be the biggest challenge that faces you immediately that you need to tackle as a new department?
The biggest challenge that we face is improving municipal water and sanitation service delivery. Our monitoring reports, the Blue, Green and No Drop reports, indicated that there's been a sharp decline in the quality and reliability of those services at municipal level. And our biggest challenge is to work with municipalities to address that.
And in terms of the issues around just the green economy, right? And again, the issues of just worrying about the impact of clean water that we can consume. Any thoughts on that very quickly?
Well, the challenge with availability of clean water is again a municipal challenge. Municipalities are responsible for distributing treated water. And often when water is not doesn't meet the standards for drinking, it's because there's been some contamination in the municipal water distribution systems, and then they have to warn residents to boil the water.
And it's a big issue in terms of what happens next year. Let's leave it at that. Sean Phillips, appreciate you giving off your time, DG in the Ministry of Water and Sanitation. Thanks for your time.
Nothing beats the feeling of relaxing on your couch after a long, hard day, getting rid of those work clothes and feeling the freedom of being in your PJs. Throwing off that lace front, undoing your hair, that makeup, voila, gone. It's going to be a quiet, relaxed night. Well, not on S3. Bring a whole lot of vroom to your weeknights with Top Gear Season 16. Monday to Wednesday at 10 p.m. and Top Gear specials such as Top Gear from A to Z and Top Gear The Races. Friday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. Channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Witness the global battle of great athletes from South Africa and from all over the world in the Olympic Games Paris 2024. From the heart-pounding races on the track to the graceful routines on the gymnastics floor, each event promises to deliver moments of sheer brilliance and sporting excellence. Live the intense rivalries, inspiring comebacks and record-breaking performances right here across all SABC TV channels, SABC radio stations, on the move with SABC Plus or online on sabcsport.com. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. The Olympic Games Paris 2024. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Right, many insurers claim to be the very best, right? But the proof is always in the numbers. You know that now. Outsurance has consistently had the very best ombudsman for short-term insurance results, and that's important. That's going on for the last 11 years. And Outsurance clients themselves, they have contributed to that. In fact, Outsurance itself pays over 1.7 million rands to get something out. Now, you can SMS out to 30754, 30754. That's out to 30754. Or go to the website, outsurance.co.za, outsurance.co.za. And that's for a 10-minute quote. Well, that could save you thousands. T's and C's apply.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, there are issues in South Africa, there are issues around the world that we need to be concerned about. So as part of the Global Watch feature, let's talk about Mali. Now, Mali has decided to end diplomatic relations with Ukraine following an admission of Ukrainian involvement in a recent deadly terrorist attack in the West African country. So dozens of Malian soldiers and mercenaries from the Russian Wagner group were killed within days of clashing with the Tuareg separatist rebels, and fighters were linked to Al-Qaeda. So what does all this mean politically and more? Charles Newkonge is the African Affairs commentator. Thank you for your time, Charles. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Ashraf. Thank you to your listeners.
All right. So what does this mean? What do we take out of this?
I think this is an indication that we need to revisit our analysis of who a terrorist is, because for several years we have presumed that terrorists are those who wreak havoc on states, and rightfully so. But to the extent that we needed an understanding of their funding mechanisms, of their training and their modus operandi, that has never been so clear as it is right now, where states are actually owning up to the fact that they are supporting some of these organizations, which have been written as terrorist organizations, and therefore classified as those that no one should engage with diplomatically or politically. That this new development is an indication that all our analysis of who a terrorist is really need to be revisited. And perhaps we need to go back to the traditional definition of a terrorist, in which case we consider that one man's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
Well, true. So in that light, help us, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys in this conversation?
As far as the good guys and the bad guys are concerned, it really depends on what stakeholders or which stakeholders they're actually representing. I'm sure that in the case of Wagner, supporting the Malian government is perceived as the Malian government is seen as the good guys, just like while Wagner is accused by the West of fighting the war in Ukraine, they are perceived as the bad guys. It really depends on where one's leaning is. But I think for the people of Mali, it is fair game to the effect that now they know that those that have destabilized their countries for a few years or for over 10 years, including among others those that the West wrote off and said these are sources of instability, that they are now turning face to see that actually these might have been persons that were deployed by the West to actually destabilize Mali, unfortunately.
So Mali's position, and just help us to understand this in terms of the role of the Wagner Group, I understand, was there to actually assist Mali because of their fears of, whether you want to call them insurgencies or counter-revolutionaries, and I understand that words in this case matters. So if they're now expelling Wagner, what then happens in terms of the running and the maintenance of that country?
Mali is not expelling Wagner per se. Mali, with the help of Wagner, has uncovered that Ukraine is actually supporting the Tuaregs that are fighting the Malian regime at the moment. And that is a huge deal for Mali to say that for the longest time since 2012, our country has been under perpetual instability, and we have been made to believe that these terrorists were faceless individuals. But now that we are not only uncovering the faces, but we are also uncovering those who are behind their sponsorship. So to Mali, this is a big deal, and that is why Mali is moving to sever diplomatic relations with Ukraine, and I can imagine that this is also going to follow with some of the partners of Ukraine.
Okay, so give us context then in terms of the running of that country going forward. I mean, what's been the state of it in terms of the day-to-day running and the governance of Mali now and beyond today now?
Well, since the military took over in Mali, after a series of mutinies, some of them which succeeded, others which failed, Mali has actually been looking for a new phase to its democratization, a phase which had been lost in the face of several terrorist organizations that had actually tried to separate or to divide the country into three separate regions: the north, the east, and the south. To the extent that, at the very least, with the help of the international community, the country stayed glued together. The military was divided, and the military was not allowed to get into certain parts of the country. Now, with the junta having taken over power, they've been able to seize power from even those areas that previously they were not supposed to go to. And that is the first thing which they did was to send out the French that served as the middlemen for them to access the north of the country. This was considered as a first step towards them taking over the full coverage of the country, and that was done successfully, to the extent that the fight which they have now is how to protect the territorial sovereignty of the country. Going forward, Mali is trying to consolidate from the north and the south their relationship with Burkina Faso, which is right in the north, their relationship in the west with Algeria, which has not joined the AES yet, and their relationship in the south, which is Niger. As long as Mali can close the corridor between Niger and Mauritania, Mali would be very much safe because Mali would have protected the entry and the exit points of these terrorist organizations.
Just lastly, as we get to news time, how is all this impacting on the daily lives of Malians?
As far as the daily lives of the Malians are concerned, the Malians continue their lives as per usual, especially with ECOWAS coming back on their decision to actually exclude Mali. Now there are constant conversations and the people of Mali can actually move across the region. So the sanctions have not affected them per se. What we find difficult, though, is that some Malians are having difficulties in accessing some European countries, especially France, because the visa process seems to look very closely as to where one's political allegiance is. But other than that, the people of Mali, they continue to live their lives and perhaps better today than previously.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Appreciate your time. That's Charles Nyokonge, who's an African affairs commentator. So that's his views on the outcomes in Mali. What are your views? How much do you know about what's going on in that region? And you have any thoughts that you'd like to share? WhatsApp 0614 104 107. I'll take your calls as well. Let's get the news headlines now. Just go on 3:30. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf Garda. And with your headlines at 3:30, the Police and Prisons Union pop crew has come out in support of the police in connection with a shootout in Cato Crest in Durban last week, where 5 suspects were killed. Water and Sanitation Minister Phemi Majodina says interventions in the Mfuleni municipality to address a sewage spillage into the Vaal system are yielding results. And thousands of anti-government protesters in Bangladesh are reported to have stormed the former Prime Minister's official residence, with some looting furniture from the building. Details of these and other stories coming up 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road. The M1 in Braamfontein has a crash reported near Smith Street. In KZN, the M4 southbound, one lane open approaching Sandile Tuzi Road. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The M7 eastbound queuing at the M4 highway, and Bayard Road is queuing at South Coast Road. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The N2 inbound has a crash reported near Jan Smuts Drive. All lanes are open. The N1 outbound has a stationary truck on Plattekloof, and Strand Road eastbound in Stickland is slow moving towards the R300 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Are we going to talk about cricket or are we going to talk about the Olympics? I'll leave
Both.
it to you to decide what
We're
you
going
want
to
talk
start off
about
with
first.
cricket, though. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Starting off with cricket preparations for the upcoming ICC Women's T20 World Cup are in full swing for the Proteas women, who are in Tshwane for a specialized skills training camp at the CSA Centre of Excellence. Now, under the guidance of interim head coach Dylan du Preez, the training camp will be divided into 2 focus sessions, a bowling and a batting camp. These sessions are designed to fine-tune the players' skills and ensure that they are in peak conditions for the global tournament. Elsewhere, former England batsman and coach Graham Thorpe has died at the age of 55. Thorpe won 100 test caps between 1993 and 2005 and scored 16 centuries during a stellar England career, and was regarded as one of the best batters of his generation. In total, he scored 6,744 test runs for England at an average of 44.66 and also appeared in 82 one-day internationals. Then moving on to Olympics, athletics to be specific, South African sprinter Kani Simbini says that he will never stop dreaming about a major international medal. This is despite missing another chance to secure his first major international medal. Simbini finished in 4th place in the 100-meter final with a time of 9.82 seconds.
No, never that, man. I never stopped dreaming. I never stopped believing in myself. Like, I was closer than I was in Tokyo, you know. So for me, it just shows that we are improving, we are getting better, and more, like, we just need to just keep doing this thing and keep running faster, keep putting ourselves in these positions to run faster, and it'll catch one day.
He was so close. I think I was like, this guy deserves a medal, but unfortunately, he just missed it with 0.01 seconds.
I was gutted, I promise you.
Sure.
My wife was watching, we were watching together, and she's looking at the first two, and it's like, I only want to know if this guy finished third. That's it.
Yes! I'm like,
because I knew he
a
didn't
bronze
win.
is enough.
I'm like, because it'll be not clear, as you know, it went to a photo finish. I'm like, did he finish third or not? And then when it was like fourth, and then by, 0.1 whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So sad, but yeah.
He's brave, and there's lots of compliments in a incredibly fierce race. I mean, it's high level.
Very high level.
So to come out fourth at that level is just something else, right?
Absolutely.
In fact, at the time when Usain Bolt won, I think in 2012, if that was the case on this level, Akani would have actually finished second. I mean, that's...
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, his Olympic journey in Paris is not over yet, as he still has the 4x100 meter relay to run, and he's still optimistic about Team SA's chances of winning a medal.
Not done yet. We're coming back in the relay. We've got 3 good guys away in the semis. I was in the final. Painting just ran a really great time. Party's also running in shape, So we got another shot in the relay, and we're going to go for it.
Well, more South Africans in action on the track and field. Wade van Niekerk is running in the first heat, men's 200 meter, and that one is at 5 to 8. And then the South African golden girl, Prudence Godiso, in the women's 800 meter final tonight, and that is around 9:45. So looking forward to seeing how they're going to do. But in terms of SA's pair, Laith Pillay and Zagiti Nene, they won their respective repechage races to book their spots in the men's 400 meter semi-finals. Then in football, SuperSport United have secured the signing of promising defender Rayden Derrick from Young Bafana. The 19-year-old will join up with the club DStv Diski Challenge squad with the view of breaking into the senior setup under head coach Gavin Hunt. Elsewhere, Chelsea midfielder Conor Gallagher has agreed to join Atletico Madrid. The Blues have accepted around £33 million, which is 782 million rand offer from the Spanish side last week. But there were significant concerns about the England international being interested in making that move. But last night, Gallagher told Atletico officials that he is happy with the switch. Finally, in rugby, World Player of the Year Adi Savea will take over the All Blacks captaincy in the opening Rugby Championship tests against Argentina, as Scott Barrett has been ruled out through injury. The All Blacks confirmed that Barrett will be unavailable for Saturday's test in Wellington and next weekend's clash in Auckland after having surgery on his fingers. Savea will captain New Zealand in Barrett's absence, with Jody Barrett and Cody Taylor serving as vice captains. On the note, it's a wrap from my side. I'll have more in the next hour.
Just a quick one. Wade van Niekerk, so he's got the world record for the 400 meters.
400 meter.
So just help me, because I don't know. Why is he's not running there, and he's only running 200 meters? 200 meters. What has happened to him?
He's cut the distance shorter. Maybe he'll be able to surprise us.
So the body has changed, I
suppose.
Yes,
the body has changed. Because, we've seen him in the 400 meters since that when I think it's in Rio. Yeah. He hasn't been the same. Obviously, now he's older. It'll be interesting to see how he'll do in the 200 meter.
I hope he does well. 200 meter sprint. I'll be watching him tonight as well.
And Prudence, 800 meter.
Well, let's talk about it just now.
Yeah.
And we must play her soundbite again.
Sure.
Not now, later on. It is so inspiring. If you ever feel like what it is to win, that's what you need to listen to. But later on, more sport in an hour.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Winners, finalists, fan favorites, and viral sensations from previous seasons of America's Got Talent return to the stage to compete for the All-Star title. Join Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Simon Cowell as they decide who is the best of the best. The creme de la creme, the top dog, is in Chamatota. It's a festival of talent on America's Got Talent All-Stars. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. on S3. Channel your best entertainment with America's Got Talent All-Stars, only on S3. Open up.
Welcome to the team, Andile.
Thank you.
What will be your first order of business?
Well, ensuring our greatest assets are taken care of.
Our vehicle fleet?
No, our employees. You see, I want them to feel confident in our company's employee benefits, and Old Mutual Corporate is perfect for that. They take care of everything, from retirement benefits to health and group risk solutions, consulting, and more.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
We are going to talk about the developments in Bangladesh pretty shortly. Let's get some thoughts and comments. Katu wants to talk to us from Midrand. Katu, hi.
Hi, good afternoon. They told me to be quick, so I'm going to speak really fast today.
Go ahead, thank you.
So, you know, this thing of the immigration for me is we need to take the xenophobia, the politics out of it and treat it as what it is. It's a crime. You cannot be in somebody else's country without the right documentation. And that's what we need to call it, regardless of your circumstances. It's just like being stopped without a driver's license and you're driving an Uber and you say, I'm too poor to afford a driver's license, but I need this job and I'm not going to hurt anybody. That's for me, we need to treat it as a crime. If my neighbor has got people without documentation working for them, I should be able to call the police and say, this guy is employing undocumented people. Come deal with this. I think that's how we need to treat it. Just like America does with I think they've got a task team called ICE.
Well, I think okay. Just quick one. I mean, I think by and large you're correct. You can't open your doors to people coming to a country illegally. But that's not the same thing as a person applying. They may get asylum. They could be refugees. They could be coming to the country, and most countries allow that space. And I think if they didn't do that, it would show almost like poor neighborliness. You can't just do that. The problem then is when people who treat these immigrants as permanently othered. I mean, it's happening now in the United Kingdom, and we've seen that again now. One issue, and they magnify it with the entire. Every immigrant grouping is like the problem now.
But you can't also be an asylum seeker in South Africa, and during the holidays you go back to your country and you come back in January. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay, but I mean that would be a home affairs issue, isn't it? I mean that's
exactly.
They would determine how do they do that and not do that. So Katu, thanks for that call. You've raised an issue that has been raised before, but it is an important one. Okay, right. Let's. In fact, we'll pick out some other comments in a moment. We're going to find out more about what's going on in Bangladesh. There's regime change there.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
We'll chat to Professor Somadoda Fikeni as well coming up shortly. Looking forward to that conversation. But here's the story. So there's been weeks of anti-government protests in Bangladesh, right? We've certainly covered it on the show. So that's and there's been losses of lives. I think over 300 people. That's culminated in what's now happened, where the country's prime minister, Sheikha Hasina, this lady, of course, right, she's resigned with immediate effect and she's left the country. So, what has happened now? At the moment, I understand the Army Chief General Waqar Uzzaman is currently in charge, but lots of questions to emerge from how quickly things have changed in that country. Salman Khan is an independent political analyst on Southeast Asian issues. Salman, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Help us understand what's happened here. How is it possible that a person who's been entrenched in power for a long, long time suddenly, in the space of less than a month, is history?
Well, I mean, anywhere the democracy just not something that will outlast your legacy. It's there. The people elected you. You saved the country in 1999 from the coup d'etat. And after that is you serve first term, second term. When it's become a continuation of anywhere in the world that you constantly holding to the rein, and then the dynamics, geopolitical dynamics are changing, your country demography is changing, and the unemployment is rising, then of course the byproduct of these things is definitely, she should have actually realized it when the Sri Lanka downfall happened, that it was coming. It was in making for a few years, and I would say this revolution was in making for the last 40 years, which it happened, but of course their intelligence services and internal, I would say, the establishment kept it quite the lid on. The problem is when you have a high unemployment rate, and of course the economic, after the COVID, a lot of countries in the region have not recovered. This is definitely the ultimate reason that she had to flood in a way that she should have just hang the rain and should have just bore down. I think the last election, and anywhere you cannot be continuation for over 20 years. She already 17, 18 years in power, and of course what she was doing, it was good on those days, but things was changing, and then result.
So why did she flee then?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Salman, why did she flee?
Of course, is reprisal. If you have she see where is the people are going. The 300 people have been killed. She's been heavy-handedly supported by Indian intelligence for the last 30, 40 years since the fall of Dhaka. The whole of the Indian intelligence run the country in a way, covertly or separately. And then she see that this uprising is getting out of the hand, and the army chief is not in a favor for her to go all out and continue to have a massacre of the people. And if the things tilt, that of course she will be another Marie Antoinette of France. So I think she realized this is the time for her to exit, and honorably in a way, not honorably, it is a disgraceful exit, but I mean, of course, at least she have saved her life by getting out in time.
And help us understand this. Is the issue that has now happened, that has forced her to go into exile, has it been about, basically the rising costs? Has it happened in many other countries? I think of Kenya, I think of Nigeria. Has it been that? Is there one specific issue that's been a rallying call, or multiple issues?
It's a multiple issues, like as I mentioned to you in the post-COVID time when, the fall of Sri Lanka happened, the Colombo, you realized that, look, economic policies are not aligning, the growth is stagnated, it's a small country and always been very poverty-stricken, and when you have a bulge of the youth unemployed, any country, look at Morocco, what happened in Morocco, what happened in Algeria and Arab Spring. And I think this is what actually it happened when you have the hungry youth on the street and you continue to suppress and oppress, and she start having a very heavy-handed dealing of media houses crackdown, on the social media crackdown. And then also she was also quite tyrannical in dealing with the Jamaat Islami, and of course, by and large, the Muslim population is very zealous. Muslim population is very, very, I would say, religious, and they see that the generation after generation, people are languishing in a jail, and this, as I say, was in making for the last 40 years, and it happened in a sad way. And I hope that such a big country, which is very important, I would say, a powerhouse of the Southeast Asia, should be seeing the transition as the General Wakar have saying that he inviting all the political parties, and then he will have a peaceful transition. But having saying that, caveat is, as I mentioned to you earlier, since the fall of Dhaka in 1971, India has been embedded into the all esprit of the life, especially in the political arena. But the new generation is completely out of that fold. So I think if the India doesn't continue to interfere into the running of the Bangladesh, I'm sure they will find the peace. But it is not going to be easy, because you got the problem at the Kashmir. India have the problem at with the Ladakh border, which is the PLA, the People's Republic of China is and eyeing for disputed territories. And then you have the Bangladesh, which is also Kalapati. Is a lot of territorial fault lines between Bangladesh and India, which is still need to be settled after the 1971 war.
Yeah. And I mean, just lastly, you made the point. I mean, there's the military in control right now. They've also invited other parties to come to the party, so to speak. But do you see this? Do you see a political vacuum that's now occurred, and somebody may want to jump in and take that space, not through democracy but militarily?
I doubt it much it will happen, but it can happen if, suppose, the protesters, the people, those who continue to protest and they wanted their way of doing things, then it might become a civil war. And then, of course, the military junta will take it as a martial law. But I hope, I think the people is calming down. The recent report is the people are celebrating her departure, and hopefully the people of the youth of the people of the Bangladesh will be heard, and the protester will be also taken into the account, whether it's come from any political dispensation, that their voices has been heard. how it depends, the next 24 hour to 72 hour will depend how the military general actually conduct itself. If it's going to be heavy-handed dealing with the protester, will lead into more anarchy and more political protest. And if you become a person who can be liked by the people and said, okay, well, look, she has left the country. Your protests are well recorded, and we're going to form a new government, calm down, and go back to homes. But if he go back and start arresting the people on a thing, and he start getting the martial law type of thing, the things will get out of the hand. The country is over 300 million.
A lot depends on what happens next. Salman Khan, thank you for your time. Independent political analyst covering issues in Southeast Asia. Thank you for that. Comments about Bangladesh. Comments about whether you believe, as has been said, Sheikh or Sheikha Hasina, a democratic turned authoritarian. I mean, do you agree with that? And then my initial point when I started the show, whether that's my point about being very careful about how we other people, and we can do that so quickly that before you know it, you can effectively cut or split a country, not just in half, but in many, many pieces, and it fragments, and it's very difficult to put it back together. We'll chat to Professor Somadora Fikeni right after this.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
And by the way, if you're calling in and you're a first-time caller, young, very young, or old, I want to know, male, female, certainly need to get you to tell me, hey, this is who I am, so I know about that too, right? Here's some comments we've had. This is on the opening thoughts.
Good afternoon, Bud. Don from KZN in the Midlands. Well said. Absolutely 100% on. I totally agree with you. 100%. As always, I can't wait. 3 to 6 p.m. Absolutely awesome. Well done. Well done.
Well, you're very kind. We could get you to do the show promos every single day. I really appreciate that feedback. But I think the point that you said, well done, on the issues of being very careful not to other people, because it comes with all sorts of problems. We know that, right? Here's an issue on the SGB story.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. East the Tracker, moving the economy from KZN to Gauteng. Mr. Ashraf, SGB members, their kids attend the school. So in this case of this racism story, was any of the parents of the victim in that SGB? Was the parents of the perpetrators in this group of the SGB members that cleared these other children from these racism accusations?
Okay, got that. Let's we'll pick up on that. And good question about parents. Obviously, they can't, because they would be directly involved in that. They would have to declare an interest. I would think it's pretty obvious to me, right? But anyway, good asking that question, and we will consider that story and how that is developing further on, because I see the Department of Education, well, they want to take it a step further. Let's now move on to other issues of importance. My guest is Professor Somadora Fikeni. Good chatting to you as always, Prof. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Ashraf, for inviting us.
Okay, now we talk to you at an important time, because I understand what the South African Public Services Commission will host the inaugural general meeting of the chairperson of the SADC Public Service Commission's Forum. And of course, yourself, being the chairperson of the South African Public Service Commission, has to be completely central to that event, right?
Indeed, we initiated the formation of this SADC Public Service Commission Forum by understanding the fact that we needed to work with our neighbors, share experiences, and also sometimes mobilize resources together. Because if we are to implement your AU Agenda 2063 or see greater integration of SADC region, or even begin to see some of the implementation of the Continental Free Trade Agreement, you cannot afford to have one or two institutions or countries with strong institutions, others being weaker. You must prepare the base so that that ecosystem and the accountability and oversight system is in place.
Well, I think it is important. Perhaps you can maybe tell us in terms of, let's take the South African example, in terms of, we have government, you have political parties, and then you get, the Public Service Commission that you chair. What then is your role? And I would think that role will be extended to the other countries now, right?
Yes, they do have their constitutional mandates or legislations as to what they do, but the work that we're doing is more or less the same. Suffice to say, some are still using the older pre-1994 PSC approach where they are the recruiting agents. They are the ones granting bursaries and so on. But in our case, departments are the ones who do the recruitment. It's decentralized, but we will now, with the new framework of professionalization, appoint a panel of experts for each one of the DGs or HODs being, interviewed, so that if a person comes from science and innovation, we approach the top experts in that field to join those who will be in the panel, rather than have people who have no skill in that particular area sitting around the table determining who should be appointed.
How then do you measure the impact and the success of the Public Service Commission?
If you have public service that is effective, that is efficient, that is ethical, and people are receiving services that are meant to be received, and where there are reports of corruption that is dealt with, that would be the impact of the Public Service Commission, because we oversee the performance of the public service entities. We also resolve the career incidents where departments were not able to resolve these. People can appeal to the Public Service Commission.
So, therefore, let's move on to the matters at hand. I mean, what's the agenda? What's the plan for tomorrow?
For tomorrow, like any inaugural meeting where we are establishing a new entity, we'll be discussing the objectives, the scope. We'll be discussing the institutional architecture, what should be the leadership of this entity. We'll be discussing the focus and the focal areas. And we'll be discussing all those things that normally get discussed when you are creating an organization. And we'll be presenting some discussion documents which we have prepared, making a compelling case as to why the establishment of this entity is necessary and what impact it will have.
As was always, one is an organization, the other is yourself. I mean, I'm sure you must have your own personal wish list going into the launch tomorrow.
My personal wish list is to make sure that we do have a forum of Public Service Commission that will have a multiplier effect across the region and the continent, in making sure that we do have ethical, professional, competent, strong institutions of public service which are able to be an arm of delivery of services to the people across the continent, such that your sustainable development goals, your Agenda 2063 goals, your national goals of development in each country, and ultimately the citizens do feel the impact and the difference of such public service.
In that case, I mean, to what degree does the Public Service Commission itself simply execute based upon a broader, government vision, or in fact is agenda setting in its own right?
Mainly, it will oversee what government has set, but the Chapter 10 of our Constitution does give room for any policy proposals or reviews or investigations. For example, Currently, we do have these flagship programs. One, we realized that during COVID, our internet system and the internet support for departments which needed to work remotely was very poor. So we went, investigated, we approached different departments, had roundtables, we approached the CETA concerned, and we've come up with policy reform proposals which they have embraced. The same with office accommodation, the same with the forensic laboratories of the police. So we do go in, investigate, come up with recommendations, and departments very often utilize that. With the police, the backlog in terms of the forensic laboratories of cases was they were able to use our report and turn the situation around.
Well, all the more, let's see what the outcomes are of tomorrow's inaugural meeting and the key, appointments, but also this important vision that you refer to. And we certainly will amplify that because it needs to be done. Appreciate your time as always, Prof. Somadoda Fikeni, the chairperson of the South African Public Service Commission. We'll have a podcast of that conversation, as with many of the others as well. And by the way, while I've got you here, would you like to join the just formed the National Pulse WhatsApp group? If that's the case, direct WhatsApp group the channel that is. If that's the case, well, just WhatsApp us. We'll send it to you. Let's get the news now.
Thank you very much, Ashraf Garda. The top stories at 4 o'clock. A union throws its weight behind a KZN police and minister addresses water challenges in the Vaal. A very good afternoon. Ke Mudupi Makhalemele with the news. Police and Prisons Union Pop Crew has come out in support of the police in connection with a shootout in Cato Crest in Durban last week, where 5 suspects were killed. This after concerns were raised around the number of incidents in KZN where suspects are shot dead. Since the start of the year, more than 40 suspects have been killed in shootouts with the police. Pop Crew spokesperson Richard Mamabulu.
Police are often forced to face hardened, heavy armed criminals, and they must continue to respond appropriately and without hesitation to eliminate the threat in these types of situations, even if that sadly means raising their weapons. Their mandate is to protect and serve, and we stand in complete support of them as they perform their task.
KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, meanwhile, has encouraged officers not to be distracted from doing their work because of critics. Provincial Police spokesperson Robert Netsiwunda.
General Mkhwanazi said that police must not be discouraged by self-proclaimed experts or analysts who find relevance only when they speak bad about the police, saying that such people have never experienced the dangers on the streets that police patrol on 24-hour basis. The Provincial Commissioner urged police to ignore the noise and execute their constitutional mandate with professionalism.
Water and Sanitation Minister Phemi Majodina says interventions in the Mfuleni municipality to address the sewage spillage into the Vaal system are yielding results. She says what is remaining is to upgrade the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant in the area. Majodina says this project is at the procurement phase. She was briefing the media on the department's plans and priorities for the 2024-25 financial year.
Good progress has been made in refurbishing and repairing sewage pump stations, unblocking sewer lines, repairing collapsed sewer lines, as well as repairing and refurbishing wastewater treatment works. This has substantially reduced sewage pollution in the residential area of Mfuleni.
The University Alumni Association of the Wilgenhof residents at Stellenbosch University says that nothing will be achieved by closing the residence. This as the deadline for parties to make submissions regarding the future of the residence has passed. A report found that alleged racist and abusive initiation practices were conducted for first-year students at the residence. It recommended that Wilgenhof be shut down. The Wilgenhof Alumni Association, however, rejects the closure, saying it'll have severe ramifications. Spokesperson Yako Rabi.
Closure of the residence would run counter to the values and vision that the university has for the future. So compiling our submissions, and over the last couple of weeks we've been contacted by various stakeholders, Wilgenoffers past and present, members of the broader Stellenbosch community, parents of current residents who have attested in public to the positive experience that their children have had in the residence, and then I think most significantly the current residents themselves.
And thousands of anti-government protesters in Bangladesh are reported to have stormed the former Prime Minister's official residence, with some looting furniture from the building. Jubilant crowds waved flags and some danced on top of the tank in the streets of Dhaka. More than 300 protesters have been killed during weeks of anti-government protests. The BBC's Akbar Hussain has more.
What a historic moment here in Bangladesh. Thousands of protesters, from different profession, all walks of life, they were marching on the streets, and we could see only people and people all over the city. And at some point, the military, police, elite force and paramilitary, they removed their barricades which are put on the streets, and people were moving towards the residence of the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. And later on, we got some news that she was flown to India with a special helicopter. And tens of thousands of people, they are celebrating on the streets.
The top story at 4 o'clock, Police and Prisons Union pub crew has come out in support of the police in connection with a shootout in Cato Crest in Durban last week, where 5 suspects were killed. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
In your sports this hour, Nene and Pile through to the 400-meter semis, and the Sharks sign veteran prop Ruan Rea from Emirates Lions. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, defective traffic lights reported across the greater region, so you're asked to treat these affected intersections as four-way stops. The M1 in Braamfontein has a crash reported near Smith Street. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and the M7 eastbound is queuing at the M4 highway. In Mpumalanga, on the N4 in Komatipoort, a crash recovery underway between Lebombo border post and the Mananga exit. In Cape Town, the M3 northbound is queuing at Paradise Road. The N1 outbound has a stationary truck on Plattekloof, Viking Way eastbound in Epping is slow moving towards Cyprus Avenue, and Victoria Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Tell you what, we always get people on Twitter, the X platform, as well as on Facebook, telling me where they are. That's great that you do just that. Becky Temper saying what's happening in England is not surprising. People feel overcrowded in their own countries. Interesting one. There's Favunzi saying we are together. There we are. It's always from Jamaica Street, you know that. And Turgis, we are together from Mashamba, Bushy Park, Lados section. And then birthday shout out to Vonani, Nefawe, there we are. Ras Petratosh, okay, got that. Saying we are together from Polokwane. Thanks that you're listening in. And then I think it's Manu Tabela saying we are together. And there's a couple more. Tembiles saying the same thing, like yeah. And Zach saying we are together. That seems to be the line. Well, I'll tell you what, when you say you're together, why don't you just also tell me what for you drives or moves the National Pulse today? So like we are together, and then tell us exactly what for you are your issues. And I asked that question because, different things move different people every single day, and then collectively we have what it is that is a reflection of the pulse of the nation. So you tell me what it is for you that moves the National Pulse. I'll tell you what, the issue of the Pretoria Girls High School story has certainly been one of them over the last few days, and I thought there's an interesting take on this. We spoke about it just before the weekend, where the group that investigated the issue around allegations of racism in a WhatsApp group, I understand whites-only WhatsApp group, and 8 of the 12 girls were prefects. Well, that issue was investigated by the SGB, the governing body of the school, and they were found that was dismissed, okay? They were found not guilty of any misconduct, I understand. Now, subsequently, the Gauteng Department of Education, they want to take the story a step further. The question is like, how much further? Where do they go? Let's find out with Steve Mabona, the spokesperson of the Gauteng Department of Education. Steve, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, and to all our listeners.
Thank you. First of all, I take it that you, when I say you, your department, are rather disappointed by the outcome of the SGB's findings regarding the students from Pretoria Girls.
No, we respect your decision. The SGB is empowered by the Schools Act to facilitate a disciplinary process within 7 school days if they suspect that children might have transgressed their code of conduct. So they gave us a report, and we analyzed and checked, and we felt that we respect it, but we still have to investigate the allegations of racism, that we put on our table.
So I'm struggling to understand this. I mean, I know when we chatted about this, not you and I, but, when the story was discussed on Friday, at that stage the report was not out, so we didn't even know what was actually contained. So what has been contained in the report, just key bullet points, and the fact that you're saying you respect it, but you still want to investigate the issues of racism, suggests that there's unfinished business there.
No, it's unfinished business because the SGB focused on the 12 learners and the allegations that we put there. But when we interact with parents, employees at the school, some learners, there's a lot of allegations that they are mentioning that the racism prevailed in that school. So we can't ignore it. So hence the decision to say, let's have an investigative body that will be independent from everyone, go into the school and investigate all these allegations. But we're not opening the case of the 12 learners. We've moved away from that one. SGP, they dealt with that one. We are not interfering or going to ask.
Okay, so thanks for thanks for clearing that up. The 12 learners who've been found not guilty of misconduct, that story is over. You're not re-looking at that. You're not reopening it. You're not appealing it if you could. That's done, right?
No, that one is done.
Okay. Why then the need to do a further investigation? What am I missing here?
No, when you read the report, you can see that the allegations of racism were not dealt with. So you then need to attend to them because what was emphasized there is allegations of bullying, violence. They were saying those learners were disruptive in nature. That's another allegation that was put on the table. So they say, what was presented was inconclusive. So that's why they could not find them guilty of anything. And we then feel that when we look at the allegations that were, leveled against the school, because you understand that there's a parallel investigation that we are conducting against the principal and, some of the employees of the school. So it was a parallel process, which that one of the department continues. And while we going to bring, the investigative body with the clear terms of reference to say, just assist us, let's understand whether there's any racism that prevails at the school or not.
But I just want to rewind back, to the beginning of this issue specifically. 12 people are accused of some form of racism during in a WhatsApp group, right? And many of them are senior leaders of that school. And all 12 are found not guilty, right? On the one hand, right? But you still want to investigate other issues of racism in general in that school. Now, if they're all found not guilty, then what about the accusers of those people? I mean, what's happened to them? And can I call it their credibility?
Look, we don't want to go much into that because our, intention is to have findings, whether is there any, racism at the school or not. If there's nothing, then we move on. Because we're talking about a new crop of learners from, the previous incident that happened in 2016. There the principal left the system. Some educators that were, suspected of anything, they left as well. So we are starting on a clean slate. Investigate, let's check whether is there anything that someone independent can find. If they don't find anything, then we move on. But if they find, then they have to recommend. This is what we found, and these are our recommendations. Then we'll take it from there.
So what I find rather puzzling is why, if they found not guilty, why would there be a need to investigate further when there's no evidence? Unless there is evidence to that point, then you charge them. For example, where I'm standing now, there's a few schools I can see in the distance of the building that I'm at the SABC right now. I mean, you're not doing an investigation on them now. Why? Because there's no evidence to go there. You would wait for a report or some accusation. Why would there be a need then to go further when the main issue, these learners have been found not guilty?
Now remember, the WhatsApp was one issue that was raised, but parallel to that, the learners put a lot of allegations, on the department's table to say these are the things that are happening at the school. So, as I'm saying, you cannot ignore some of the allegations. And though you accept the report, which, we feel that the racism investigation was not done, let them do it. And so that if there's nothing, exonerate the entire school community. Because now we're going to be interacting with parents, educators, our employees, be it administration, be it the general assistants, and all the learners, those that will be willing to participate in this process.
Okay.
Are
you able to tell us what sort of accusations are there in that extended report?
No, let's not go there. Let's just give the investigative board an opportunity to investigate, and they will pronounce if there's something of merit or not.
Okay, what's the position now with regard to the school head, who I understand was suspended as well, right?
The principal, yes, will remain there because we have an investigation that we're continuing with.
And that's a separate accusation then, do I take it?
Yes, it's parallel. It's a parallel process from this one.
But I mean, clearly serious enough for that person to continue being suspended.
Well, our practitioners, they decided that she must be suspended. So they are the people who are in the practice. They know what they're doing. They are leading the process.
Okay. Just the last thing, I mean, you mentioned, I understand now you're saying that learners and their parents would be part of this general, broader investigation into racism in the school, right? What then does that tell us about the culture of the school right now? Culture is such a hot word, I understand that, but just the general learning and mixing culture within that school, what can you tell us?
Well, on the face of it, that school is a high-pressure school. Every parent in Tshwane wants that school. So you can tell that curriculum delivery is happening, though you will then have those allegations, but when you arrive there, learners are disciplined, they are in the classroom, because I went there twice during curriculum delivery. You don't see the children moving around and all those things. So there is some sense of discipline, and that's why we are saying these allegations actually are eroding an image of the school. So that's why we really need to not to ignore them and make sure that we investigate and finalize this matter.
Okay. Do I take it that the pupils who were suspended were then found not guilty have gone to school today, and the accusers are also in school today? And that's the case. What's the morale like today?
No, we didn't know what happened today because we have not been tied with the school. But as it were, learners were welcome to come back today.
Okay.
And continue the curriculum delivery. What we did was to call upon the public not to disrupt because we took a decision. So they need to wait for, that completion of the initiation that we are now saying.
Okay. And there's been no disruption today?
No.
Okay. We'll follow that story. Steve Mabona, appreciate you giving up your time from the Gauteng Department of Education, the spokesperson there. What do you make of that story? And perhaps also, in particular, if you are from Pretoria girls yourself. I mean, if you could be a learner, you could be a parent, you could be a teacher, you want to call in anonymously. I want to know, I'm interested in the personal story of this school and your understanding, certainly of the conversation I've had now about this parallel investigation, considering 12 people have been found not guilty. It's rather puzzling to me, but I'm sure you have a better opinion and a better insight than I have. 0614 104 107. I'll get your WhatsApp messages as well in a moment.
Nothing beats the feeling of relaxing on your couch after a long, hard day, getting rid of those work clothes and feeling the freedom of being in your PJs. Throwing off that lace front, undoing your hair, that makeup, voila, gone. It's going to be a quiet, relaxed night. Well, not on S3. Bring a whole lot of vroom to your weeknights with Top Gear Season 16. Monday to Wednesday at 10 p.m. and Top Gear specials such as Top Gear from A to Z and Top Gear The Races. Friday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. Channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Here he comes. Hello, guys. You're so dramatic. Hey, bro, it's not me. It's the extra styling kit, the leather seats with the red finish. It's the tow bar, all coming standard with my red Isuzu badge. Wow, now that is extra.
Why be standard when you can get the all-new Isuzu D-Max X-Rider from just 8,742 Rand. Prime less 3.5%, 0% deposit, 40% balloon, and 72 months to pay. Get yours today. Finance is subject to approval. Isuzu Finance, a product of Westbank, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Paying your TV license means that you can tune in to the Expresso Morning Show from 6 to 9 a.m. Mondays to Fridays right here on S3. Enjoy our entertainment, recipes, and important current affairs and updates. All of this for less than 74 cents a day or 265 Rand for an entire year. For superfast, secure, and convenient payment from any device, go onto tvlrc.co.za and click on the Fast Pay button for payment in under 3 minutes. Make a difference with Expresso and TV licenses and pay yours.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get a call. I said you can call anonymously if you like on this issue. We do have one from Pretoria. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for calling in. Go ahead. Your point.
Yeah, I'm a former educator. Racism. Like, for instance, children are a true reflection of what is happening in the home. And sometimes children might not be a reflection of what is happening in the home. They might pick up racism outside. So parents and teachers must check what are they what do they want to entertain. Do you see what I mean? Do they want to entertain children with racism at home and so on? What I'm trying to say is that it's up to the parent and the teacher to cut racism before it can get out of hand.
Well, I got you. Thank you for that call.
Then,
Sorry, quick one.
And again, girls are attending school. They are losing masculinity to interact with boys and so on. They must sometimes make trips to visit schools where there are both boys and girls so that they must get a touch of masculinity.
All right, got that. Thank you for that call. Well, there you are. Interesting points on both issues. Perhaps you may want to comment on that. I think the role of parents, we've spoken about that before. I mean, the parents have a huge influence in terms of what is acceptable and not acceptable in the home and certainly outside as well. So to what degree do you play a role in ensuring that your children are not racist and don't articulate any racist comments or views in public or in private? Or don't you play that role? And I don't care whether you're white or black or whatever, just what role do you play in that? And understanding this issue about senses of being conscious of other people around you and their cultures too, right? Let's get to another issue. It's a big issue, I suppose, if you are one of those that buys beer at the beer house in Cape Town. And I'm talking about Long Street. So people who know Long Street will know exactly what I'm referring to. Understand that the Cape Town beer house is to close its doors. after 11 years, and the reason primarily is the issue of extortion. And that's a concern. Let's find out more with Randolph Jorberg, who is the beer house owner. Randolph, appreciate your time on the National Pulse. Hello.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for, giving me this voice. And hello from Germany.
Thank you. I gather your Pulse race going into overtime to make a decision to shut down the beer house.
Well, the decision for me was to speak up about extortion as it happened in the last 20 odd years and as it happened to the beer house since the second day of trade. And for speaking up, I had to finally, let go of my association with beer house, and my remaining partner then decided that what I said in the public, was too much for him to deal with the consequences. So the mutual decision was then made to rather close beer house than to continue trading.
Okay, can we go to the very beginning? What actually has happened here?
So what happened when we opened in 2013 is what happens to every business in the nightlife industry. A guy comes offering protection against money, and when you ask him what value he's going to give for the money he's asking for, they basically only promise you that they will stay away. And that to me, was an offer that I found not acceptable. Because why would I give money to someone who doesn't deliver any service?
Effectively, a protection against themselves, in effect.
Yeah. 100% correct. And as a consequence of me not paying them, 2 years after opening, we then saw the murder of our doorman Joe in June 2015, where after that happened, I was then told that I can't speak up openly about why this happened. And essentially, only now, like 2 weeks ago, I spoke up about publicly on Carte Blanche in a 15-minute episode that they released, where I, told the full story, where I showed all the material, where I had the surveillance and the recording of the conversation that clearly show the extortion that happened to us and that cost the life of our doorman Joe.
Okay, so initially you said no to extortion, then it cost the life of one person. They came back to you. Understand, I'm reading the report. At one stage your staff said you have to pay the protection fees or else, and you did. Is that right?
Right after the murder, this is what happened. The same night, the remaining team said, Randolph, if you don't pay the racketeers now, then we will walk away. And obviously, the business is nothing without its staff. So that's why right after the murder, we started paying the racketeers. And, and we paid them, still until now. And just simply the fact that now I spoke up publicly, that I, exposed them, called them by their names, released their pictures and their videos. So, videos proving all of this. This is now why we were forced to close down.
Okay, so did you just get clarity in terms of you paid the racketeers? How much did you pay them? I mean, is the monthly figure or an annual figure? How much?
It's monthly, and usually when you negotiate, you can get prices as low as 1,800 or a month or 600 a week. And this is also what the price we paid. But I know of other businesses that then pay up to 80,000 Rand a month.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
okay. All right. But then you decided then to go public about it, having paid anyway, right? When you did you get threatened then? Is that correct?
Yes. So in the past, already when I went publicly in a limited way in 2020, while we were closed in lockdown, I received death threats. My team received threats, and it happened again this time, that, you get these calls and you get warnings that are your team is receiving warnings. All of that is happening. And these guys know this game. They've played it for the last 20 odd years. extortion is seemingly accepted by everybody in the nightlife industry in Cape Town, while in the rest of the country it wasn't popular or it wasn't frequently happening in the past. But that has changed. Just like what has changed is that extortion is now normality in the townships, in the construction business,
Okay.
in the transport business.
All right, you decided to shut down the beer house. So ultimately, reason is why?
Me speaking up in public about the extortion became too much for the people and of a risk for the people working at Beer House and with Beer House. So this is the primary reason. And the other reason is, many people obviously also say, Long Street isn't what it used to be anymore. And obviously, a lot of tourists are being warned against coming there. There is a perceived danger of not of the extortion, but now of the, opportunistic crime, the pickpockets, and this, which has been going on since we opened, but seemingly also got worse and worse in the last few years.
Just the last thing.
Yeah.
Just the last thing. What has been the role of the police in all of this? As we get to news time, yeah?
Look, it's a problem that police isn't doing, what we feel is best. They don't go after the pickpockets. They sometimes show initiative. Recently, also due to, certain people knowing that this publication was coming, they now suddenly show a lot of face on Long Street again and in the nightlife, but not necessarily the way, that really supports us. And it's always a problem, this dialogue between businesses and, government, politics, and the police force. It's been a challenge since day one.
Okay.
But there is an attempt, to make it better.
Okay, Randolph Jorberg, thank you for your time. The owner of the beer house in Long Street, but that beer house is not a beer house any longer. It's been shut down after 11 years, essentially a victim of extortion. They had to pay effectively a rental to extorters who's like, hey, that's how we're going to keep you in business, by staying away or else. And he's made a shout out about it, and that's it. Their lives are in danger. What do you make of that story, particularly, and anywhere in the country, but if you live around the Cape Town area, around Long Street, well, you tell me. I was there last week, as you would know, right? Let's get the news headlines now. Here's Madupi.
Thanks, Ashraf, and good afternoon. In your headlines, the ANC has vowed to claw back its support in future elections. The Police and Prisons Union pop crew has come out in support of the police in connection with the shootout in Cato Crest in Durban last week, where 5 suspects were killed. And the EFF says it condemns what it calls the racist protests that have erupted across the United Kingdom. And those are your headlines. Greg will have your full update at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound is slow moving towards Boyson's Road exit, and the R21 southbound in Kempton Park has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions towards the R23 Benoni exit. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Camperdown has a stationary truck before Umlaas Road reported. The N2 southbound is slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction, and the M7 eastbound queuing at the M4 highway. In Mpumalanga, the N4 in Komatipoort has a crash recovery underway between Lebombo border post and the Mananga exit. In Cape Town, the N7 checks Havel Drive southbound is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road. Main Road eastbound in Observatory is slow moving at Station Road, and Brighton Road in Kraaifontein slow moving at the N1 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me, it is Olympic Games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? Can't look beyond that.
Olympics.
Go ahead, yeah.
It's all things Olympics, and Team South Africa's duo have qualified for the semi-finals of the men's 400-meter repechage race after finishing first in their respective heats. Nene finished with the best time after winning Heat 3 with a time of 44.821 seconds, beating Botswana's Lungo Scotch and Hungary's Attila Molnar, while Pile also finished first in his heat with a time of 45.4 40 to qualify for the semi-finals. Don't forget, there's also still some action on track and field. Wait for Niekerk taking to the track in the 200-meter first heat, and that is at 5:28. And also Prudence Khodiso, she will be running in the 800-meter final, and that is around 21:47. And just earlier on, Ashraf, you did say...
So she's running, it's tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
It's tonight.
The
and
drama.
We're looking forward to seeing how she's going to perform. But earlier on, you did ask about some of the comments that she made.
Yeah, so I wanted to say this much, and then you can play it. I mean, so she got to the final,
Yes.
and then the things she said in terms of what it means for her to be in the final, it's a soundbite that I think I would like to hear over and over and over again, because it gets to the very heart of what it means for a human being, isn't it? You want to set it up? Yeah?
Here she is.
Well, I'm just emotional. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say much. I just want to, go to my coach and cry with him through all the hard work that we've been putting. So I'm just excited, man.
What does it mean to you, and not only to you, to your family, to everyone?
Well, it really means a lot. I just made it to the finals with the BQ. That's huge, eh? Like right now, I don't want to say anything. I just want to go to my coach and go rest, and that's it.
So you can hear the emotions.
I'm just
in her.
excited, man. That's what she
Right?
said. And she's crying. I mean, there's
Yeah.
tears. Are you going? Can you post this this video clip? Are you able to? So post it. Tag me, tag SFM Radio. We'll get Rusani
I
to
definitely
share
will.
it.
But we're looking forward to seeing how she's going to do tonight.
But I mean, it just shows you what what a big deal it is to be, not even to win the final. Imagine if she does it, but just to get to the finals. I hope she at least gets, a medal.
And she looks up to Kasta, and Kasta was saying, I was listening to her speaking about her, saying that she's quite proud that there's another athlete coming from her province doing as well as she's doing at a young age. She's 22 years old. So
Is that considered young in this field? Because, in gymnastics, you're over the hill. I mean, it's all perspective, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a beautiful clip. We'll post it on our social media platforms, right? There's another clip you want to play.
There's another clip of Akani Simbini. I mean, a lot of people were bummed out the fact that he didn't win a single medal. But I think for me, it was more about the inspiration in how he spoke after the race.
Well, here's the thing. Before we hear that clip, I was working it out that in seconds, or in hundredths of a second, the gap between him and the fifth person was equal to the gap between him and the first person.
Sure.
It's remarkable.
It was very
tight.
tight.
It is ridiculous. But I mean, I was, again, I seem to be disappointed every day. I was very disappointed. But it just shows you, in an incredibly tough race, what it means to him, and I mean how close he was. But I mean, the clip you want to play, maybe we should play it now. Just, again, the things he says must inspire.
I know a lot of South Africans were watching me. The Springboks won in the stadium, and it's one of those things where I'm just like, dude, it's a moment of history, There's no South African that has ever been in 3 Olympic finals and placed higher than me. I'm the one that's doing this thing for the first time for every South African, And that's a great thing in its own, I might not be getting the medals and stuff, but what I'm doing is I'm changing how sprinting is seen in South Africa, and I'm motivating a lot of kids, and that is really great, because maybe one day I can inspire some kid, and then he'll feel like, okay, if Akani could do it, I can do it, and even try to do it better than him.
I tell you what, he could volunteer as the Minister of Sport. I'm just saying. I mean, there's now 3 of them, but he speaks the language that I buy into.
I think from my side, I'm just happy that he's saying that he's still going to be in the sport. He says he sees himself staying in the sport long enough, and hoping that one day he actually gets that international medal that he's looking for.
I really hope so. Let's. The relay comes up soon. Okay, go ahead.
Well, let's move on to football. Kanyisa Mayo has explained his decision to join Algerian side CR Belouizdad instead of Mamelodi Sundowns or Kaizer Chiefs, who are also interested in his services. And he says a visit by the president, Mehdi Rabehi, to South Africa convinced him to join the club. And he says he's looking forward to a new challenge. Elsewhere, new Liverpool manager Arne Slot says that his side still have room for improvement despite wrapping up their pre-season tour of the United States with a 3-0 win over Manchester United at the weekend. Slot, who replaced Jurgen Klopp in May, also guided Liverpool Liverpool to wins over Arsenal and Real Betis. They face Sevilla next at Anfield before visiting promoted Ipswich Town for their Premier League opener on the 17th of August. Then in basketball, we've seen how African countries have been competing at the Olympic Games in Paris, and it has also shown their quality with Nigeria through to the quarterfinals in the women's section and playing the USA on Wednesday. In terms of the men's section, South Sudan caused an upset when they beat Puerto Rico in the opening game, but failed to reach the last 8 after losing to the USA and Serbia respectively. And according to Basketball Africa League President Amadou Fall, he says that this talks to the growth of the sport on the continent.
I just came from Lille yesterday, where we saw South Sudan continuing to really represent the continent and showcasing what's possible, and the Nigerian women's team also doing us proud there. So the momentum is continuing to build, and I'm excited for the opportunity that all of us here have to continue to use the power of basketball, the transformative power of basketball, to influence, to impact, and to really move Africa forward, use our game as an economic growth engine for the continent that is going to boost economies and contribute to GDPs of countries.
Well, on the note, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
We certainly will wait for you. Thank you.
When Freddie, a troubled woman, is nearly assaulted outside a nightclub, the toilet attendant steps in to help. Baba, a former child soldier, acts with swift, unstoppable brutality. She's entranced. The pair form an instant, intoxicating connection. Something dark within both of them quickly emerges. Soon, they set about exacting revenge on people from Freddie's past. Baba's skill for violence and Freddie's tinge of psychopathy prove a lethal combination. But they are not the only ones on the hunt. We hunt together, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 24th of July. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, there are two things I want to talk about now. One is the interims regarding impact, and then an update on local and global markets. And to tell us all about that is Makwe Masilela, as always, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Okay, there you are. Makwe, go ahead.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners. We are starting with Impact. This is a plastic and paper packaging company. And Ashraf, as anticipated, the challenging economic and trading environment persisted. The uncertain socio-political environment leading up to the national elections, high levels of load shedding that continued until end of March, high inflation and interest rates all contributed to weak consumer and business sentiment. The net finance cost increased by 12%, and that was mainly due to higher average net debt, as their net debt increased by 21%, and their profits as headline earnings per share is down to 21%. But that outlook is brighter because of lower inflation, no load shedding since April 2024, and possible interest rate cuts later this year. And unfortunately, it's a bloodbath when it comes to the markets. Fears over the economy are remaining to be at the fore amid worries that the U.S. Central Bank may have left interest rates elevated for too long, allowing them to hurt economic growth. Fears of recession are triggering mass risk aversion. Market participants are beginning where they finished on Friday. Traders are adding to bets that the global central banks will need to take action, and some are even betting Ashraf on an emergency rate cut from the U.S. Central Bank. And the unwinding of the yen carry trade also has a hand in this market turmoil, not forgetting escalating Middle East tensions, and oil losses extended in a volatile session at the back of recession fears. But declines were buffered by worries that spreading conflict in the Middle East could hit crude supplies. Brent crude is down 1.7% at $76 a barrel, and yellow metal retreated but still at elevated levels, benefiting from increased safe haven demand amid heightened concerns over slowing economic growth. Gold is down 2% at 2,390, platinum down 4% at 916, the DAX Foods is down 2.1%, CAC down 1.7%, the Dow down 3%, S&P is down 3.3%, the Nasdaq is down 4%, Asia was worse with Nikkei down 12%, the JSE is down 1.4%. We have been cushioned by some industrials, the likes of Naspers and Richmond, which are only now down 0.8%, but our resources are down 2%, financials down 1.9%, cent, and the rand 18.50 to the US dollar, 23.60 to the pound, and 20.27 to the euro.
Okay, got that, Makwe. Thanks for your time. We'll chat again tomorrow, but we'll have another update coming up with Jimmy in another hour's time. Right. Let's get to calls and voice notes. In fact, Mike in Newlands, you've got a thought. Hi, Mike.
Yeah, hello, Ashraf. Thanks for a great show.
Thank you.
As always, I've always enjoyed listening. Ashraf, just a quick thing. We were talking about I've been following this case of the Pretoria Girls High School.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed when I first found out about it, that you spoke about it on your show as much as you did last year, and you said that, yeah, there's got to be some sort of like race training and stuff. But I couldn't work out that the fact that the school, what these girls have done. Then I only found out afterwards that, in fact, they hadn't actually been charged with it. They'd just been suspended. And it turns out that this didn't happen yesterday. I'm sure it happened a year ago. And instead of the department, or Gauteng Education Department, finding out about it, sending in one person to go and interview the headmistress. I understand from this report I'm reading here now, three of them went in there. She burst into tears. They then had to protect her from the students, because they then went onto stage, got the whole school together. This is the Department of Gauteng Education, and asked the girls, the pupils, must these white girls stay or go? Now, these girls were then sent home with some feeble excuse. Apparently, I think it was inappropriate opinions. I can't imagine what these girls must have gone through for that week or two, nor what the parents went through.
Well, I mean, that's
now,
Mike.
Ashraf,
Yeah.
Ashraf, let me just finish this. It's important. Now they've been found not guilty. Now, the other thing, I just want to make a point. The interview you just did now with Steve Mabona, right?
Yeah.
I have to say it was one of your best interviews, because you asked the question everybody wants to know. And the question is, what happened to the accuser? Now, this is the Department of Education we're talking about. They are massively corrupt. 432 million rand stolen. Steve Mabona himself has been suspended before. In fact, he was actually fired at one stage many years ago. He's currently being investigated for like 800,000 rands of security that he doesn't deserve. And at the moment, that department is involved in a 1 billion rand tender scheme. This is not a department that we need to take on face value. We need to be very careful.
Well, I mean, I'll leave it at that just because of time. But I mean, I agree that it is so puzzling, and this is a grey area that I'm as confused now than I was even before the conversation with the spokesperson. I mean, I would say that much, right? And I can't imagine, the culture of that school right now, today, and the atmosphere. Okay, Mike, got that. Thank you for your time. Thanks for the compliment. Much appreciated as well. Right. Okay, let's get to some voice notes as well. I mean, really, this issue of Pretoria Girls and this parallel investigation, racism on the one hand, and then the girls. And then some people say, why are we talking about it? We talk about it because we have to amplify the reality. We can't ignore it.
Hi, Ashraf. On this issue of these students at girls' high school, it seems that the inequality in South Africa is still continuing. It can't be that those students can be found not guilty or on this situation. Really, we still have a big problem here in South Africa. I'm Kololego Duma from Harding at Santombe.
Well, I think we do have a big problem. I think, this is the point. There's strands of racism in all sectors of South African society, but it also doesn't mean, to be fair, that every issue is racism. There are many layers of it, and let's be clear about it. But it doesn't mean everyone is. And that is why I think it's very hard to pin it down in terms of what that means, because it's easy one can gang up against others. The example of what's happened in the United Kingdom, in England, in Southport, is just classic, where what happened, and I mentioned it in the That's My Point feature, please listen to that from the beginning of the show, it's a podcast too, is how quickly things can turn around, and people mobilize as a group or a tribe, and they just other everybody else. And before you know it, issues go completely out of control. So more so than ever before, I think there needs to be more management in terms of understanding race relations, in terms of culture and consciousness, but also in terms of understanding conflict resolution outside issues of just race. It's complex, we know that, but it has to be done. Right, here's another one on investigations.
Hi, Ashraf. If we look at investigations that were done for the Phala
issue against the president. There were many organizations. I think the Reserve Bank did its own investigation, SARS did their own investigation, others did their investigations. And a few of them absolved, or they said there was no case for the president to answer. So the issue is it's important for the terms of reference to be specific and correct and relevant, because they have a bearing on the outcome of the investigation. In this case in point, against racism or whatever in that school. Thank you.
Okay, got that. Thank you. Well, I mean, that's the point. They are, especially what happened with the first issue now. We're talking of the 12 girls. Like, I do find it rather amazing that the principal remains suspended. The 12 girls were charged or looked into in terms of allegations of racism. And all of them scot-free, not one, all. Phew. I don't know what that means. That's just, it's almost like unprecedented for me, right? Let's get the thoughts of Tsepo and Kimberley. Hi, Tsepo.
Hi, Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, good talking to you, man, from Kimberley.
Good. Yes, thanks for the opportunity. Ashraf, I'm just brought up, maybe I missed a part of your show, but ever since we had this issue regarding racism at schools that are currently happening, I just feel like we haven't paid attention to the issue that I think it was at Pineland School regarding some of the boys that were getting cases.
I missed what you said. The line's really bad. Just repeat that one line again. Ever since we spoke about racism, yeah? No, Seppo, I'm so sorry. Love to have chatted to you, but just can't. Maybe you can just text us and we'll try and read that text as soon as possible. Here's another one from Zakele in Durban. Hi, Ashraf. So I'm not too sure if I've read it correctly. It says racism is an acceptable culture in the Pretoria Girls High School. It is a fertile ground to breed racists. We need an independent investigation. Unfortunately, the culprits were left scot-free by their racist parents. Okay, well, there you are. Okay, I think I don't have to add to that. That is a point made. Here's a couple more around the issues of water, which we'll cover again after 5.
Ashraf, that what you're talking about, everyone wants water, everyone wants a safe place. That is actually called the Bill of Rights in this country. The children start learning that from grade 4, Bill of Rights, to have a clean environment, to be safe, to be loved. The list goes on and on. To have water, like I said, the list goes on and on. So this was actually brought into place from when Nelson Mandela became president in 1994, and I think it was put in place in 1996. So we are in 2024, and an actual act called the Bill of Rights is still not being adhered to.
Okay, well, yeah, I hear you. And yes, there's a counter-argument. There's a great wish list, and to what degree is that wish list being met? I'll pick up some other thoughts. By the way, we'll chat to John Carney coming up around 10 to 6, and we'll have another take on the water issues after 5. So listen out for that with Ferial Adam, Dr. Ferial Adam, just after 5. But let's talk about, I think, a fascinating training rural youth scheme that you'll be inspired by after this.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
SA Schools football comes alive on the 9th and 10th of August 2024 at Sarah Park, Wits University for the SA Schools National Championship from 9 a.m. daily. The best under 15 boys and girls representing their province's school teams will battle it out to try and be selected into the under 15 schools national team. Bring your family and camp chairs to support your provincial under 15 team. If you're not in Gauteng, catch the games on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC Plus. For more details, visit safa.net. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, anybody else? Are you also from Pretoria Girls High? And, it could be you as a teacher, learner, parent, anybody connected to the school that you'd like to share the experiences. And I haven't forgotten about, what is the school in Cape Town? I mustn't forget the name. I have forgotten the name. The one with the P, but we'll get to that just now. The one around the issues of Pinelands. That's it. Pinelands School. The one about the whole slave trade auction. I wonder what's happened about it. I need to get maybe Keys to say, look, let's just follow up on that issue. They were having talks around that issue. Well, what about training rural youth in South Africa in the digital media space? It's an important one because if they don't, then there's a further accentuation of what I'd call digital apartheid, right? So Ikasi Creative Media, a South African non-profit company that provides accredited training programs to marginalized and disadvantaged youth, particularly in rural communities, in that creative digital media space. Let's find out what they really do and what it means for those that benefit with Lamisa Inglis, the co-founder and managing director of Ikasi Creative Media. Lamisa, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Hi, thanks, Ashraf. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so practically, what is it you do, firstly?
Well, I manage the everyday running of Ikasi Creative. That's a non-profit company. And Ikasi focuses on training youth digital skills, specifically around digital media and content creation, using their mobile devices to create video content, and also understanding the role that content plays in income generation, thereby enabling them to get into the gig economy and earn extra income by generating content.
And just for those that don't know, I think I'm a bit clever and I know, but we can't be too clever, right? When we talk about digital, media, what does that mean compared to, what we think of as traditional media, simply, listening to the radio, watching TV, reading a newspaper?
Yeah, so usually if a story needed to be told, there would be a lot of production people, huge cameras, edit suites, and all of that is needed. But now with the advent of social media, everything's become a lot more small. So it all happens on your mobile device. And that's where we come in and we train the youth to not only take beautiful photographs, but also film with their mobile devices, film video content, edit their video content on their devices, and also to understand the different social media platforms and what content would suit each platform, just to make them a little bit more marketable and enhance their storytelling capability.
So in terms of this training, it's rural learners only. So give me some names in terms of communities.
Well, we've operated quite a bit in the Western Cape, up in the Garden Route, a little bit of the Eastern Cape, like Humansdorp area. We've also been in the West Coast, the Saldanha region along the coast, and we've done a lot of training in the townships of the Cape, as well as the Worcester area. We are in talks to extend to further into the Eastern Cape as well as the Limpopo region.
And what difference is it making?
It's making a great difference. If you think about it, I mean, these beautiful little small towns that are very picturesque and you drive through on holiday and it's just all awesome. What we've noticed, if you look a little bit closer, there's a lot of unemployment, and usually youth from those areas don't have access to creative study. It's mostly your handyman type careers, so like woodwork, engineering, mechanical, and I don't have an issue with that. It's just that, we're bringing a little bit of creative flavor to these towns so that it caters for the youth with creativity. We also believe that everything is social media based today, and why not earn some money? Even if you're full-time employed, you can still earn money on a Saturday filming a video for an hour and then, generating some income.
Well,
from
maybe
selling it.
that's the million-dollar question, I think, in what we call the gig economy, so you can do different things and not be full-time in one. So can a person, disadvantaged or advantaged, in either way, going through a program like yours, right, in digital media, be able to upskill themselves sufficiently to be able to earn money, whether it's full-time or part-time, using that skills? And the answer is yes, and I'm suggesting you're going to say yes. How then would they earn the money? What would they need to be doing?
Yeah, so absolutely. And what the key difference with our training is allowing them to see the beauty within their own towns and the opportunity they're in. So connecting them with small businesses and informal traders who maybe don't have the skill of marketing the products or their businesses succinctly on social media. So we train our learners then to do that for them, and thereby they can then sell their content to these small businesses or informal traders to help them also grow their businesses.
Okay, right. Give me, a contact number, a website, or maybe a social media account, because maybe that's more appropriate if I can direct others to you.
Yeah, so our web address, everything goes through our web address. It's www.ikasimedia.com. So Ikasi, IKASI media.com.
Okay, I'm going to check it out. Feel free to tweet about it as well. Just tag SFM Radio and tag myself.
Will do.
We'd gladly share that as well. Well, there we are. We inspired, and really that's part of what we do is we talk about innovation and other things in the digital and digital marketing spaces. So Lamise Inglis, thank you for your time from Ikasi Creative Media, the co-founder there. And that's the bottom line here. Honestly, you can make some money in this informal or gig economy, even though you may think not. There are opportunities to be just one step better than the weakest link. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg Hose.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, ANC vows comeback and condemnation of UK protests. Good day to you. The ANC's vowed to claw back its support in future elections, this despite having lost its majority for the first time since the 1994 elections. The party's top brass and its alliance partners have been meeting in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg, to reflect on the outcomes of the May elections and discuss a policy program for the ANC in government. Since losing the Western Cape to the DA, the party's been struggling to regain lost ground in that province. But the party's spokesperson, Zuko Kuntlimpi, says he's confident the ANC will make a comeback.
I think the ANC has two records of how it does after not winning an election. It's the Western Cape case, is the KwaZulu-Natal case. In KwaZulu-Natal, we started off in 1994 around 32%. We progressed slowly to 99, we still didn't win. We went to 2004, we still didn't win. We formed a coalition government, but we were not a majority. Then we won KZN for the first time in 2009. What is it that we did in KZN that we didn't do in the Western Cape is the question that the ANC is going to have to answer, and that's part of the work that we're doing. But we're confident that we do have a baseline to think about the ANC's ability to claw back lost ground and eventually win.
Police and Prison Civil Rights Union POP crews come out in support of the police in connection with a shootout in Cato Crest in Durban last week where 5 suspects were killed. This after concerns have been raised from sectors around the number of incidents in KwaZulu-Natal where suspects are shot dead. Since the start of the year, more than 40 suspects have been killed in shootouts with police. POP crew spokesperson Richard Mamabolo.
Police are often forced to face hardened, heavy armed criminals, and they must continue to respond appropriately and without hesitation to eliminate the threat in these types of situations, even if that sadly means raising their weapons. Their mandate is to protect and serve, and we stand in complete support of them as they perform their task.
Labour Federation COSATU will be meeting with other public sector unions this week for a Labour caucus as they wrap up consultations with their members ahead of the start of formal wage talks in the sector next month. They are calling for good faith talks in the public sector from the Minister of Public Service and Administration in the Government of National Unity, COSATU convener Kaya Sodidi.
As unions, we've done that economic outlook. Where we are now, we have taken that down to our members so that our members can give us a mandate which is backed up by the economic information which we have done. The work we have done as unions so far, we are looking at the double-digit increase in salaries of the employees. because what we have discovered, especially public sector unions, is that for the past 4 years, the state or government employees, they have been receiving far less the inflation.
Stellenbosch University in the Western Cape says it's currently considering all submissions before a final decision is made on the closure of the Wilkenhof residence. A report found alleged racist practices and abusive initiation practices for first-year students at that residence. The report, which was commissioned by the university and accepted by the rectorate, recommended that Wilkenhof be shut down. The Wilkenhof Alumni Association, however, rejects the closure, saying it will have severe ramifications. Stellenbosch University spokesperson Martin Viljoen.
The Stellenbosch University Council has received a number of written representations pertaining to the future of Wilkenhof, and that is following Council's conclusion that the matter warrants a further consultation and consideration. Council will advise on the way forward once it has had the opportunity to consider all representation received.
The EFF says it condemns what it calls racist protests that have erupted across the UK. It says these far-right demonstrators are a disgraceful display of hatred and ignorance that have no place in any society. The violent anti-immigrant protests were sparked by the tragic murder of 3 girls in a knife attack in Southport in northern England. EFF spokesperson Leanne Matthys.
It is also disinformation that has fueled these violent protests, as well as online agitators spreading hate and xenophobia. However, this is unsurprising, as Britain's despicable history of racism is well documented, and it is rooted in its brutal colonial past.
The top story is that the ANC has vowed to claw back its support in future elections. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Proteas women gear up for T20 World Cup with skills camp in Tshwane, and the Sharks announced signing of veteran prop Ruan Dreyer from the Lions. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 eastbound in Germiston has a stationary truck reported after Edenvale Road exit. The N12 westbound in Eldorado Park has delays towards Klipspruit Valley Road exit. The R82 southbound in Aikenhof has delays towards the R554 Lenasia exit, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash reported at the R21 highway. In KZN, the M7 eastbound queuing at the M4 highway. The M4 southbound is slow moving towards the N2 highway exit. The N3 eastbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 eastbound in Camperdown has a stationary truck reported before Umlaus Road, and the R102 southbound slow moving near Old North Coast Road. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound is queuing towards the N1 Kuburg interchange, and Marine Drive northbound in Milnerton is slow moving towards Boundary Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Attention ladies, join us on Saturday, August 17th, 2024 for the Star Choice is Yours Women's Day event at Altitude Fourways, a day dedicated to empowerment, inspiration and transformation. Engage with dynamic speakers, attend interactive conversations and connect with amazing women just like you. The event will be hosted by the fabulous Unatingai. Don't miss out on this opportunity to celebrate and elevate yourself. Get your tickets now at www.quicket.co.za for 550 Rand, drinks, food and a gift bag included. Plus, stand a chance to win an honor product. This incredible event is powered by independent media and the Honor 200 series.
Hey Mike, congratulations on your retirement.
Thanks, Andile. Are you preparing for it?
Yes, but not just for myself.
For you and?
For me and my employees.
Oh.
You know, since we moved to Old Mutual Corporate, their retirement funds have not only been safe and secure, but gaining competitive returns through exposure to diverse investment markets.
Impressive.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Winners, finalists, fan favorites, and viral sensations from previous seasons of America's Got Talent return to the stage to compete for the All-Star title. Join Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Simon Cowell as they decide who is the best of the best. The creme de la creme, the top dog, is in Tamatota. It's a festival of talent on America's Got Talent All-Stars. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. on S3. Channel your best entertainment with America's Got Talent All-Stars. Only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
As always, wherever you may be around the country, around the world, and listening on radio or via live streaming or the new SABC Plus app as well. It's great if you send a picture of where you are, of yourself, or alternatively of you locked into the SAFM dial, wherever you are. It's just great if you do that. And if you do so, it's probably the easiest way. Just tweet it out at SAFM Radio and then tag me, Ashraf Garda. Do the same on Facebook, but also you can send a WhatsApp voice note 0614 104 107. And by the way, talking about voice notes, we've created a new WhatsApp channel, right? So if you want to be part of that channel and you get direct links and alerts to all the things that we do, this is for the National Pulse only, then how about you sending us a WhatsApp now? You can WhatsApp and say, please add me on, and we'll certainly do that. We'll chat to John Carney much later on. As part of our feature, we look at big winners in our country. We'll also talk to the SABC News political reporter around the ANC-NEC Lekgotla update. Well, that has huge implications, and we know that they are still the dominant party, if not the majority party any longer. What's the next coming out of that, Lekgotla? But let's talk about water. Water and sanitation is a big issue in our country. You know, early on, we chatted to the Department of Water and Sanitation about their master plan. I chatted to Sean Phillips, the DG in the department. He spoke about a range of issues, and we thought let's get Dr. Field Adam to respond to that. She is the executive manager at Water Can. So, Dr. Adam Field, good chatting to you once again. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to all your listeners.
Much appreciate your time. Now, one of the things that we spoke about when I chatted to Sean Phillips, right, is the issue that we'd heard in terms of what the minister had suggested, that in fact water shortages is really not a national problem. It's a municipal problem. I put that to him, and this is what he said.
Legally, we can't go and take over a municipal water and sanitation function if it's not working in the municipalities. The municipality needs to fix it. We can't go in and fix what is their responsibility.
So I thought I'd ask this of you, Afidel. I mean, is it correct in terms of the law and in terms of the practicality of water distribution?
So unfortunately, according to the law as it stands, that is correct, because there's very much a divide in terms of national competencies and national responsibilities and then local government responsibilities. So unfortunately, that is true, but I do believe that more can be done. You know, so it's not a hands-off, and that's what I'm seeing from this new plan.
And what more can be done?
So I think that in terms of, if you look at the Blue Drop, Green Drop report, which I'm really glad that the minister said will be continued, right, because it wasn't reported, like for 10 years we didn't have it. Anyway, in terms of the Blue Drop and Green Drop, it gives you an idea of how municipalities are doing, both in terms of their drinking water as well as in terms of their wastewater treatment work. And then you have the No Drop report, which is your non-revenue water. And this is where the department can play a really strong role, because they are responsible for these reports, and they come out and they score municipalities. And then they have in the report certain actions that the municipalities need to take. So municipalities then have to provide them with their action plan within a particular period. And that, I don't know if you recall, the previous minister had a conference earlier this year specifically on making sure that municipalities commit to providing these action plans.
Well, I remember that, and I think, you know, the problem is, as we see in many parts of the country, and certainly we've been talking, you and I, a lot about the city of Joburg, right, and how it's been hamstrung by that. You know, the question has always been like, to what degree can national impose on local to literally get their act together, as opposed to, you know, we will leave no stone unturned, which really means very little, isn't it?
So this is the challenge. Of course, there are some municipalities who have heeded to that call by the previous minister and I think the new minister. and they've handed in their action plans. But of course, there are always those that don't. And how do we, and that's the challenge. How do we, and even, so the department can have a fantastic plan as it has. How do we hold those municipalities accountable? And for me, I think it needs to be a combination of things. It can't only rest on the Department of Water and Sanitation as we're seeing. We need to review, because water is something that's so important in our lives that we have to find a way that people need to know that there's going to be repercussions if they allow things to get so bad. So I think that COGTA needs to get involved. The Department of Water and Sanitation, Environment, all need to get together to say, how do we change these policies to make sure that municipalities can be held to account? Because where I disagree with the plan is that there's a call to say, civil society, you need to check and you need to hold municipalities account. And we're doing that, Ashraf, but no one's listening. So if you look at the Ugu district, for example, you can stand on your head before you'll get a response from the Ugu district.
And you wonder why, isn't it? Yeah, it's just
exactly.
Crazy. Yeah.
The same thing where we know in people are saying the water's been polluted for years. What is happening around it? City of Joburg, they can't, there's the Hout Copies and Bush Copies wastewater treatment works in the south, where it's just polluting those rivers and nothing's being done about it. We lay criminal charges, but everyone doesn't have that access to do that. How do we make sure that municipalities work?
Well, I want to compare the issue of load shedding and water shedding in just a second, but the DG also spoke about how they go about distribution.
But the actual distribution of water at a local level, in terms of the Constitution, is a municipal function, and that's where most of the problems are currently.
Okay, I think that's the point we've made already. Now, the other thing that I want to just play this clip here in terms of some of their key plans. So let me play that. You can talk on the back of that.
We have quite a number of projects currently underway around the country, worth more than over 100 billion rand, to develop additional dams and to raise dam walls to make more water available. And then she also indicated, in addition to doing that, we are going to be promoting diversification of the water mix, more use of groundwater in a sustainable way, reuse of wastewater from wastewater treatment works at municipalities. So she emphasized that there's 3 or 4 things we need to do to ensure water security and fewer water disruptions in South Africa. The first is to build these additional projects. The second is for municipalities to reduce their leaks in their distribution systems and to maintain their water infrastructure better. The third is to diversify the water mix. And the fourth is for everyone to use water more sparingly. And she emphasized that if we do all 4 of those things, then we can have a future in South Africa where there aren't water shortages and where water won't be a constraint to economic growth.
Okay. Does it sound like he's saying all the right things, Dr. Fiedler?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the DG is spot on. I mean, where I would disagree is how they would do it, but I think that those are very key things, right? I think in terms of water conservation, which he's talking about, and reducing the per capita use, I think we need to also look at how industries are using water, mining, farmers, etc. Because it's a big chunk of our water that's being used, and also in terms of pollution. And I do believe that we need to reuse, recycle in South Africa. The fact that we are flushing down clean drinking water in our toilets, and this day and age, is unacceptable. So we have to look at how do we reuse. The challenge, though, if he says, we need to look at having grey water coming out from our wastewater treatment works. But 70% of our wastewater treatment works are critical. So we need to fix that. So these are longer term things. And I agree with it. I agree that that's what we need to do. The other thing in terms of dams, we need to, these projects that he talks about, the 100 billion, I think a lot of them were stalled for a long time because, as you know, there was this period in DWS where nothing was happening. And I think that we need to, moving forward, try to move away from these kind of massive projects to more smaller, sustainable projects. Because dams is an old school kind of thinking. You can't dam up everything in a country where we are so water scarce.
Okay, we're going to find out what's the new school thing, if that's the case. And here's one that in many ways is related to what you just spoke about, Dr. Fiedler Adams, saying, it's from Kaz in Durban, saying, it's reported that South Africa per capita uses more water than the global average. So what are we using it for that other countries don't? It needs to be pointed out to us. So, well, answer that. What are we using it for that other countries don't?
So I think we're all using it for more or less the same things, right? So it's residential use, it's industrial use, it's mining, electricity. A lot of our coal needs to be like washed and those kind of things. But I think the challenge then is also, if you listen to the minister's speech, she talks about that very big number, which is 47% of non-revenue water, of which a big chunk of that non-revenue water, Ashraf, is your stolen water, your non-billable water, so municipalities are just not billing correctly, and then the loss of water through leaks, which is what the DG also said. We need to get municipalities to deal with that. Mfuleni, for example, their non-revenue water percentage is 70%. So that means all the water that they're buying from Rand Water, of that, they're losing 70%, whether it's through leaks. There's no money coming from it. So that is a big challenge, and the DG is correct. We need to fix the leaks across the country. It's a real challenge. So a lot of that, that high consumption amount does not take into account the amount we've been losing through non-revenue water.
So overall, all things considered, do we have a water crisis in this country, or is that an exaggeration?
I don't think it's an exaggeration, but if you ask the people in government, if you ask some hardcore engineers, they'll say, no, there isn't a water crisis. But this is why I say there's a water crisis. One, our rivers and streams are, the way, if you've got 70% of your wastewater treatment works that are not working properly, they are spewing waste into the rivers and streams, whether it's from pharmaceuticals, whether it's sewage. So you've got very high levels of pollution flowing into our rivers and streams. And that for me is a concern in a country where we don't have a lot of water to waste. The second thing is 60% of our river ecosystems are threatened from climate change or pollution. So in terms of quality, that's a crisis. In terms of quantity, and if we look at infrastructure falling apart across the country, you look at Tshwane, you look at Ekurhuleni, you look at Joburg, eThekwini, everybody's struggling with leaks, pipe bursts on a daily basis. And that, we can say it's not a crisis, it's just an infrastructure problem. But no, if we're losing 47% of our water,
it's a crisis, yeah.
It's a crisis.
Good point. So here's the last thing. If the minister asks and seeks your wise counsel and gives you like just 30 seconds to make one point that they will adopt, what would you tell them?
30 seconds. I think that they need to change. They're getting there, but I think that there needs to be a harder response on municipalities to act. And until we don't do that, this is going to continue. Until we don't see people going to jail for polluting or allowing infrastructure to fail, allowing water tankers to become a mafia, it's going to continue.
Okay.
And the national government cannot wash their hands off this anymore.
And wash their hands is such an appropriate image to use in this case here. Dirty hands. I got that. Dr. Field Adam, thanks for your time. Executive Manager of WaterCan.
SA Schools football comes alive on the 9th and 10th of August 2024 at Sarah Park, Wits University for the SA Schools National Championship from 9 a.m. daily. The best under 15 boys and girls representing their province's school teams will battle it out to try and be selected into the under 15 schools national team. Bring your family and camp chairs to support your provincial under 15 team. If you're not in Gauteng, catch the games on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC Plus. For more details, visit safa.net. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma Upumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So here's someone saying, Ashraf, I'm a student at the school. The head girl was selected to play hockey, for the South African team and saying the school environment was okay today. I would like to say that the SGB is made up of the student parents. I know that. When the media received the letter that the 12 students were coming back to school, it was sometime that the Department of Education found out. And if we as students are lying about this racism issue, then what was the whole point of suspending the principal? As well as the students, why were they suspended if they are innocent? They still have their leadership positions. Honestly, what kind of leaders in the school is the school trying to build? I'm as confused as many are regarding Pretoria Girls High School. Are you as confused as many are regarding the future of the African National Congress? Well, they've been in meeting, they've been in consultation, they've got a Lekgotla on as well. That is the ANC's National Executive Committee. Let's find out more about what was discussed today and maybe over the last couple of days with Ntebo Mokobo, the SABC News political reporter there. Appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. Right. So some key findings that come through from initial consultations over the weekend to the actual Lekgotla, right? Where are we at right now?
Well, you recall, today is the second day of the NEC Lekgotla, and everything now is happening behind closed doors where the delegates here have broken into commissions. They're discussing different aspects of governance, for instance, your economy, your legislature, international peace and security, and all of that. So they are in commissions. There hasn't been anyone really coming out to come and brief us today. The only thing that has been happening is that we've been kept busy by the spokesperson, and of course there were those, especially from the alliance partners, who said something except to say everything is for them. They are pinning their hopes, in fact, on the success of the government of national unity and keeping a close eye on how is this government of national unity going to pan out, because some of them felt that in a way it's an arrangement that will not really advance the cause of their core constituency, that is the workers, especially the poor and the working class.
So what's come through regarding that? Because, we've chatted to the SACP a few times, and they were not just concerned, they were scathing in their criticism of this relationship, and I wondered how that would work, right? On the other hand, I see the ANC spokesperson, Zuko Godlimpi, is confident that the partners, the SACP and COSATU, will soon change their stance. So what has come through? They say soon change their stance. Is there anything you'd like to tell us that emerged from any discussions over the weekend?
Well, what you know that at the weekend it was all about the political overview of the president. They were discussing the political overview of the president. That's the NEC. That's on Saturday, and of course even on Sunday when the NEC started. To be precise, on yesterday when the NEC Lekgotla started. They then reflected on the mooted call by former President Mbeki to hold the national dialogue. And of course, they all agree that the ANC has bought into this idea of former President Mbeki to have a national dialogue that is sort of supported by a number of foundations of luminaries or some illustrious families, the Nelson Mandela, the Biko family, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. Those are the people who are calling for that national dialogue, and of course other civil society organizations. And of course, again, they then reflected on how is the ANC going to regain the lost ground going forward. The one thing that came out is that there has to be a particular interest on the local sphere of government, because they're saying that for some time now there's been a disconnection between what really appeals to the electorate at the national and provincial level, as well as the local government. And then they said, but this time around, it seems the ANC is judged by what is happening on the local sphere of government. For instance, when people are talking about electricity at a municipality like Johannesburg, where you talk of a power reduction while there is no load shedding, that on its own has an impact on the ANC at a national level, because people are saying that those are the services that needed to be provided. For instance, water. When the traffic lights are not working, when there is no water in some municipalities, people judge the entire ANC. They're not saying the local share of government or our mayors, our councillors are not working. They're saying the ANC government is not working. So now they say that they had to try to realign the appeals of the electorate to say they had to do everything. They don't have to look at that something matters at national level.
Did they come through that they got it wrong? Because I mean, ultimately, they mentioned the Panyaza Lesufi's what's it called, the Nasi Ispani recruitment program, right? And they mentioned that the no load shedding almost discredited them because it looked like they were taking a chance and they were lying, right? I mean, those are just two things that come to mind immediately. And of course, the MK party story, right? But overall, in terms of what you've heard so far, did the ANC say we've got it wrong? And I want to give you an example. If we were talking in sporting terms and a club that should win the league, I'm thinking of Kaizer Chiefs now, finishes up like 10th on the log, then they can comfortably say, hold it, we've got this thing completely wrong. Did the ANC come through and say that part, that actually we've got it wrong, we've erred dramatically, so we've lost touch with our electorate?
Yes, in fact, that's one question that I posed to one of the leaders here. That it seems there's this tendency that the problems that has caused the ANC to lose election is like exogenous. It's like something that is outside. There is no responsibility, or there is no a time for the ANC to say, let's take responsibility. And they said that at some point, one thing that they found is that the delay interventions. At some point when there is a crisis, the ANC took long to intervene. And then they said something to the effect that some people had suspicions in some of the interventions. For instance, when there was no load shedding just before elections, people said on the 30th or on the 1st there will be a load shedding, because people had suspicions that all those things were meant for electioneering. You would recall, at some point that the president was leading this presidential impeachment. At some point, people were saying the president is using presidential impeachments to campaign for the ANC. So such things, when people started to have suspicions, they tend to say this thing is only meant for the ANC to win elections. It's not really throughout the year. And of course, even the Deputy Secretary General, Nomvula Mukonyan, at some point said the ANC has to be this political activism. The ANC has to service people throughout the 4 years, not just a year or a few months before elections. It has to be immediately after this election. Then the ANC must go on the ground to service people, as opposed to wait until the election comes.
Maybe that's a good way to end. The fact that Nomvula Mukonyan in fact said that is a sad reflection on a political party. Like it's the most obvious thing to do, and yet they have to remind each other to do just that you have to perform with your electorate for 5 years, not for 1 year out of 5. Ntebo Mokobo, thank you for your time. I'm sure we'll have further updates tomorrow, certainly for the morning show and the rest of the shows here on SAFM. Thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Right, let's get to the news headlines now. Here's Greg Coase.
Quick look at the headlines. The Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation has visited the scene of the crash where a bakkie collided with a train, leaving 4 people dead and 2 others injured. The ANC's vowed to claw back its support in future elections, and the Israeli military says 2 soldiers have been wounded in a rocket attack launched from Lebanon. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange. The N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash reported at the R21 highway. In Germiston, the N12 eastbound has a stationary truck after Edenvale Road exit, and the M2 eastbound is queuing towards Refinery Road. In KZN, the M4 southbound has 1 lane open approaching Sandile Tuzi Road. The N3 eastbound in Camperdown has a stationary truck before Mlaws Road. The M7 eastbound queuing at the M4 highway. The N3 eastbound has a crash before Spaghetti Junction. Bayhead Road westbound has truck congestion reported towards South Coast Road, and Chris Hani Road westbound queuing at the N2 highway. In Mpumalanga, on the N4 in Komatipoort, there's a crash recovery underway between Lebombo border post and the Mananga exit. In Cape Town, the N1 inbound has a crash at the R44 Clubmits exit. The N2 outbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M5 northbound queuing towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. The M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road, and the N2 outbound slow moving towards Bunga Avenue. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
I tell you what, to me, I've got this message from Tao, and he says, Ashraf, you'll just never know how much informative the show is. It just never misses me. With a name like Tao, you think it's like Percy Tao. But anyway, you better tell us what you're going to talk about.
Alrighty, let's start off with cricket. Preparations for the upcoming Women's T20 World Cup are well full in swing for the Proteas women who are in Tshwane for a specialized skills training camp at the CSA Centre of Excellence. Under the guidance of interim head coach Dylan Dupriya, the training camp will be divided into two focus sessions, a bowling and batting camp. And these sessions are designed to fine-tune the players' skills and also ensure that they are in peak conditions for the global tournament. The bowling sessions will see the return of young Sima Ayanda Hlubi for the first time since sustaining a groin injury towards the end of last season. In terms of Olympics, World Athletics Chief Sebastian Coe says that newly crowned Olympic sprint king Noah Lyles has given a boost to the sport, not since the glory years of Usain Bolt. Speaking to reporters after Lyles won an epic men's 100-meter final at the Stade de France last night, Coe said that the charismatic American was now hugely important for athletics, and he says that he's well on course to fill the void created by the departure of Jamaican icon Bolt, the 8-time Olympic gold medalist who retired back in 2017. Meanwhile, in swimming, Adam Petty questioned China's relay victory on the final night of swimming at Paris Olympics, saying that there's no point of winning if you are not winning fair. Now, China took gold in a thrilling men's 4x100-meter medley relay race, beating the United States into second and France third, with the British quartet finishing fourth. Two of the four gold medalists were among the 23 Chinese swimmers who reportedly returned positive doping tests prior to the Tokyo Olympics, and they were not banned this time around. What do you think about this, Ashraf, where they tested positive for doping and this time around they are in the clear?
So I haven't followed the story completely. So they tested positive and now they're clear
to compete in the Olympics, and now they just won. So this athlete is basically saying that he feels like it's unfair.
Okay, I don't know enough about it, so maybe I could ask you, what do you think about it? But I mean, there are lots of puzzling issues around, first of all, doping, in the world never existed. And then it became like it's part of our lives. Mm-hmm. So it's a big policing thing in terms of gaining an unfair advantage, right?
Yeah.
And so if they gain an unfair advantage, well, that's no good.
But then again, you get banned for a couple of years. You serve those years, and then if they say you can come back, you can come back, right?
But that's the same like going to prison, right? When if your punishment is 2 years and then you're out and you're rehabilitated, then you can't keep them longer, can you? So it depends what the crime is, and sometimes it's 1 year or 6 months or 5 years. Sometimes it's, Paul Pogba, I think, has got an issue where his career is in serious trouble.
It's basically done.
Yeah, so there we are.
It's basically done.
Yeah.
But in football, SuperSport United have secured the signing of promising defender Rayden Derrick from Young Bafana. The 19-year-old will join up with the club DStv Diski Challenge squad with the view of breaking into the senior setup under head coach Gavin Hunt. And new Liverpool manager Arne Slot says that his side will have room for improvement despite wrapping up their pre-season tour of the United States with a 3-0 win over Manchester United in South Carolina at the weekend. Slot, who replaced Jurgen Klopp in May, also guided Liverpool to wins over Arsenal and Real Betis. Now they face Sevilla next at Anfield before visiting promoted Ipswich Town for their Premier League opener, and that is happening on the 17th of August. Now in basketball, African countries have been competing at that current Olympic Games in Paris, showing that they have quality, with Nigeria through to the quarterfinals in the women's section and playing the USA on Wednesday. In terms of the men's section, South Sudan caused an upset when they beat Puerto Rico in the opening game, but failed to reach the last 8 after losing to the USA and Serbia. And according to Basketball Africa League President Amadou Fall, he says that it talks to the growth of the sport on the continent.
I just came from Lille yesterday, where we saw South Sudan continuing to really represent the continent and showcasing what's possible. And the Nigerian women's team also, doing us proud there. So the momentum is continuing to build, and I'm excited for the opportunity that all of us here have to continue to use the power of basketball, the transformative power of basketball, to influence, to impact, and to really move Africa forward, use our game as an economic growth engine for the continent that is going to boost economies and contribute to GDPs of countries.
In Rugby World Player of the Year, Adi Sevilla will take over the All Blacks captaincy in the opening Rugby Championship test against Argentina, as Scott Barrett has been ruled out through injury. The All Blacks confirmed that Barrett will be unavailable for Saturday's test in Wellington and next weekend's clash in Auckland after having surgery on his finger. So Sevilla will captain New Zealand in Barrett's absence, with Jody Barrett and Cody Taylor serving as vice captains. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. More on other sports tomorrow morning. There's also sports show now coming through from 7 till 8 p.m.
It's Brian Mafokeng is hosting it,
Brian
right?
Mafokeng is coming through.
Just by the way, talking about hosting, so I'm looking at this poster about about an Instagram Live happening tonight at 8 p.m. And it talks about a sports broadcast masterclass. So which suggests there's a big need for more people to want to get into learn how to become sportscasters. And the guest today is Impo, my boy. We all know her, right? And I see the host is Tumi in Khapere.
Yes, I'm going to be hosting it. It's our first one.
Wow, okay.
I'm looking forward to it. Very exciting. I'm going to be hosting it on Instagram. It's going to be an Instagram Live from 8 p.m. And I started it because I've been getting a lot of inboxes from a lot of young sports broadcasters asking me different questions, and some of them asking to be mentored. And I felt like, sometimes I can't answer all those inboxes. However, I can get some of my colleagues in the industry and we can try to help them together. So today I'm talking to Umpa, my boy, who'll be talking about her experience and how she started, some of the lessons she learned as she started, and advice to give to those that are coming into the industry.
Let me not keep you up. You need to get ready for your 8 o'clock thing. It's going to happen every Monday.
It's going to happen every Monday at 8 p.m.
Just a quick one. Who for you, not commentator, who for you is the preeminent sports broadcaster, female broadcaster in the country?
Oh my goodness! Don't do that to me.
Okay, watch her on the Instagram Live. She'll probably tell you then, I'm sure, because somebody's going to ask her. I'm sure about that.
All right,
there we are. Goodbye until tomorrow, and enjoy 8 to 9 p.m. or 9:45. Yeah, 8:45. I think it is, right? Okay, perfect.
TV licenses have developed a new GIS-linked national address database to ensure that we can communicate with all our valued license holders. We now have a visual of all licensed and unlicensed households nationwide in order to effectively communicate with you. We remind you to take note of our payment reminders and avoid paying penalties due to non-compliance or choosing to ignore your legal obligation to pay your license fees. We can communicate with all our license holders through cost-effective electronic methods, enabling us to collect license fees and continue to support the national broadcaster, the SABC, in accordance with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act No. 4 of 1999 as amended. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Welcome to the team, Andile.
Thank you.
What will be your first order of business?
Well, ensuring our greatest assets are taken care of.
Our vehicle fleet?
No, our employees. You see, I want them to feel confident in our company's employee benefits, and Old Mutual Corporate is perfect for that. They take care of everything, from retirement benefits to health and group risk solutions, consulting, and more.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
When Freddie, a troubled woman, is nearly assaulted outside a nightclub, the toilet attendant steps in to help. Baba, a former child soldier, acts with swift, unstoppable brutality. She's entranced. The pair form an instant, intoxicating connection. Something dark within both of them quickly emerges. Soon, they set about exacting revenge on people from Freddie's past. Baba's skill for violence and Freddie's tinge of psychopathy prove a lethal combination. But they are not the only ones on the hunt. We hunt together, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 24th of July. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on
S3. Open up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Tell you what, before I get to that, let me remind you, if you want to follow us on our new the National Pulse WhatsApp channel, and particularly if you're a fan of the show for alerts, just WhatsApp us right away. You should know the number 0614 104 107 and just ask to be put onto that channel and we'll get you there ASAP. Right, the SAFM market update hosted by Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, interesting. I'm looking at Japanese markets crashing to their lowest in 37 years, and then I see $1.9 trillion wiped off the US stocks. Please help me. What am I missing here?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. The markets are in a tailspin. Japanese central bank increased interest rates last week. That sent the Japanese market in one direction. Then there was concerns around the US potentially heading into a recession as we got those non-farms numbers that we spoke about on Friday. They came through much worse than expected, which suggests a definite slowdown in the US economy. But we are only anticipating rate cuts from the US as early as September. So the market is now pricing in, will the US go into a recession? Is the situation that bad? This coupled with the fact that we're seeing giants like Warren Buffett liquidating their Apple holdings and preferring to be in cash and not in anything else. The only time you typically see an investor like that liquidating that amount of holdings, especially with so few stocks in a portfolio, is when you're anticipating something going pear-shaped. And so there's been a lot of concerns, there's been a lot of rumors, there's been a lot of speculation around what's happening, and the markets don't like that. And they've reacted in the worst fashion, or in the only way they know how, by triggering a massive sell-off.
Okay,
and
so
we're going to be looking into that
yeah.
sell-off when we get into our show a little later on. But we're also going to be looking into a couple of other things. We're going to be looking into the latest conversation from the central bank in South Africa around how they are now going to measure inflation. They've introduced a new measure for inflation that hopefully will give them a better reading on inflation. We're going to speak to an economist around that and try and understand that. Then we've got a conversation around the rand with all of the happenings around the world. The Big Mac index is out once again, and it's an index that kind of measures the relative purchasing power of currencies and how overvalued or undervalued they are. This still suggests that the rand is almost 50% undervalued at current levels. So we're going to look into that as well. And then we've got a conversation as part of our Personal Finance Mondays on how to plan for the different stages in your life based on the different types of insurance needs you might have. So the insurance needs you'll have at the start of your working career might not be the same as when you start a family or when you start growing your assets. We're going to look into all of that and understand what's happening there. But let me give you a quick summary of those market movements. As I said, it hasn't been a good day, and you know it's been a really bad day when South Africa or JSE markets in the red are still the best performing markets. Let's start with some global markets before we come back to our local ones. Sydney was down 3.7%, Hong Kong 1.5% in the red, Shanghai 1.4%, the Nikkei 12% in the red in a single trading day, as you mentioned, Ashraf. The worst trading day in 37 years, or the worst, biggest loss in a single day in 37 years. European markets, not much better. The CAC 40 in France, 1.75% in the red. DAX in Germany, 2% in the red. FTSE, 1.9% in the red. US markets in the red, all of them. Nasdaq, 2.5% in the red. Dow, 2% in the red. S&P 500, 2.1%. Our local markets, slightly better, but not much. The all share was down 1.1%, with the resources losing 1.5%. Industrials 0.75% or 0.75% in the red. Financials 1.4% in the red. Currencies, the rand losing ground almost 0.5% against the dollar, 18.52. At some stage we were closer to the 18 rand level. Now we're closer to the 19 rand level again. Against the British pound, 23 rand 63 and 20 rand and 31 cents against the euro. At some point that was below 20 rand. We're back above 12 rand against an Australian dollar, but only just at 12 rand and 1 cent for an Australian dollar against the rand. And if we look at the commodities pricing, they haven't really moved in the positive direction either, except for Brent crude. Brent crude price $76.46 a barrel. Gold price $2,409 an ounce. Platinum and palladium still hovering below those levels, or below the $1,000 levels that we need them to. And the cryptos are the other thing. Bitcoin down back at $54,000 a coin, 54,898. It was at some stage 50,000. Ethereum or below 2,500 there. So I've got a lot to unpack when we come back back a little later on, and we're going to try and get to the bottom of as many of these as possible. But we'll be back a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
And I'll tell you what, I mean, just a thought as you say goodbye, Jimmy, between following the Olympic Games and being concerned about how inflation is measured. I'd be very tempted to follow you and find out how inflation is measured. That affects me every single day. I always believe that. I just don't believe those numbers. I just don't believe it. Anyway, okay, enjoy the show. 6 o'clock, 6 to 7, right? And then followed by sport thereafter. We are going to chat to John Carney coming up shortly. But in the meantime, there's a range of people commenting about some issues, including the past 30 years.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Mutlatsi from Pretoria. I'm thinking now it's clear that for the past 30 years, there hasn't been anything that was happening, in the boardrooms, in parliament, about racism. Because, I mean, what is this thing? It seems new now. Hey, this government...
What do you mean that this government? Actually, this government is run by all the parties. Ouch.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Joseph here from Randbeck. The problem that I have with these investigations conducted by Gauteng Department of Education is that every time they get outside people to conduct these investigations, which are to me not necessary, but because they want to outsource them and also pay another person, it's another way of giving tenders to people from outside. Just ask them how much money did they spend on these investigations, which are conducted by external people, while there are legal people that are working for the department. It's a waste of taxpayers' money.
Okay, there we are. And talking about money, what about the construction?
Hi, Ashraf and your team and lovely South Africans. Things are starting to get out of hand slowly. This construction mafia is now a game, and even extortion, it's a game. People, they are risking people's lives, and now it's becoming a lifestyle. One is hopeful that the new minister, Ndate Senzo, will deal with these matters. It's like we are now becoming a failed state slowly. We need to, and I'm using this word deliberately, we need to crush all those who are involved in these activities. It cannot be. It's like everybody is doing as he wishes or he or she wishes in this country. Thank you very much. Eddie from Under Stress.
Okay, thanks for that, Eddie. Lots to consider there. I won't answer. There's not much time, but certainly the nation can reflect. And by the way, do join. Many people wanting to join the National Pulse WhatsApp channel to get direct alerts to all the things we do, including the podcast of Mampela Rampele. We did it on Friday. Had a great chat with her. We'll send that podcast as well to you shortly. If you want to, just WhatsApp us, 0614 104 107. Say, please put me onto the channel. Right, David in Pietermaritzburg. Hi.
Yes, Ashraf. I'll be quick. For me, I differ on the issue of that Pretoria school. Here in Durban, in one school, in Corona Girls, there were complaints the previous year about racism. And I think it's the SGP that met and said, no, there are no findings. The following year, the department here in KZN of Education decided to appoint an independent panel. And guess what? It discovered that there were issues of racism, and the principal was fired together with their deputy. So let's allow the Department of Education to conduct their own investigation and satisfy themselves. If there's no racism, it's fine. We shouldn't just try and block it. Let's allow them, because there were reports during 2016, and the same report came back, and the spokesperson did mention that the report that was drafted or compiled by the SGP didn't mention anything about racism, and we don't even know whether the kids that reported about the racism were interviewed during this process that was held last week.
All right,
so let's allow the process to unfold and be finalized.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let's allow the process to unfold. Well, I think we are allowing it. We don't even have a choice to stop it. That's clearly what's happening. We chat to John Carney right after this.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, the plan is that every day when we end the show, we speak to someone who's a winner, who's best in class, and is acknowledged as such. And the case now is with Dr. John Carney, who's a renowned multidisciplinary actor, director, playwright. Really, just about, I think when you come to someone who's the preeminent force in his space, I mean, he just comes out top. And that's just not my view. I think there's just so many awards that confirm that. But also, we talk on him specifically because he's a recipient of an OBE, the Order of the British Empire, recognizing his contributions to the arts. So we thought, let's chat to him. John, good chatting to you. Let me give you an applause for champions, yeah?
Thank you, Ashraf. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's always great to talk to winners, and I've made the point that you're best in class. So it's a chilled tribute to yourself, and well done to you. No surprise, but well done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you very much.
What does this mean to you? I mean, you have been acknowledged on multiple levels, right? So what does this latest acknowledgement of the Order of the British Empire mean to you?
Winston Jonah, Arthur Figard and I first performed at the Royal Court Theatre 1973. And since then, I have been going variably once a year or twice in 2 years to bring my productions, whichever I've done at the Baxter Theatre, sometimes at the Market Theatre mostly, and other theatres. So in 2023, exactly 50 years later, I suddenly get this from Lord Chamberlain of Buckingham Palace about going to be honoured with an officer of the most excellent order of the British Empire.
And you think, you think you should argue with him and say no, or bring it on?
No, whenever I get an award, or it's almost like somebody patting you on the shoulder and say, thank you for your work, and thank you for being you, and thank you for always keeping that light shining in front. And that's all it is. So the work that's being recognized started actually in 2019, that when I took my latest play, Kunene and the King, starring Sir Anthony Shea and myself, and it was included in the 2019 Royal Shakespeare Company Shakespeare season. And at the end of that, I then received the Pregnell Shakespeare's Birthday Award for making Shakespeare accessible to broader communities. Followed by that 2022, the Royal Shakespeare Company celebrated 60 years of its existence, and they selected the highlights of those 60 years. Kunene and the King was included in those highlights. So one then would see it as the body of work that I have done in England, and that they are recognizing. Being a republic, of course, and I cannot be Sir John Carney, because we are a republic. We are not a governor-general run. But the order gives me the right to be recognized as an OBE. It's something that's perhaps more important in England. Wherever you go, you're being reminded, this is a so-and-so OBE, this is so-and-so OBE, that's somebody CBE. Those things don't mean a thing being a South African. But they mean a lot in England when the royal family recognizes you for the work and your contribution. So I'm very, very proud.
So next you go to England, I can imagine we have to call you, in South Africa, John Carney, but in England, Sir John Carney. Get used to that. It's rather strange sounding, right? Did they explain, in terms of the award, in terms of the why? You gave me your story about your work there, but, often there's a citation that says, awarded to John Carney for these reasons. What did they tell you?
This is on the order of King Charles III in recognition of his contribution to the arts. And it goes on in good English. It's a whole long certificate which repeats it as whereas saying the same thing. And in the end, that King Charles III then bestows upon you, John Carney, an OBE in recognition of your work. It's just looking at the contribution. I mean, you go in and out. I mean, people like the critics there, especially in every work, I've been very, very fortunate. I have been celebrated in my work and in movies and in television that I've done in England. So it's that body of work that the king was recognizing. But somebody told me, actually, your name was submitted during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. And when she passed on, King Charles III took over and finalized the whole process.
Okay.
So that makes me a little more challenged.
I was going to say, as you said, that citation, it was so long that it took like 50 years, so it had to be completed by the new monarch, and maybe that explains why it took as long as it did, right? But having said that, I mean, well done to you. Now, you have won many awards, I know that. What more for you in terms of, leveraging of this? Because, besides the pat on the back, and I know that every award does allow you some leverage. I speak to you today, although I know you only because of this award. I mean, as others I would not talk to you. And that gives you an example of just the leveraging power of being seen as best in class, right?
The gatekeeping abroad is incredible on immigration and customs. Before you work in England, you need a petition motivating why you, as a South African actor, should be given this role that could not find anybody else that could play the role. This takes that away. Now I could be cast in any part. I don't need to have a work permit. You do just apply as formality, and the British Equity will nod. Same with the Tony Award in America. I can work anywhere because you're regarded as creating industry. If you're in a project, more people work around you. Those then protect you in a way that they make it easier for you to work without going through applying for a work permit, applying for approval from the union, applying from the West End theatre directors, applying. All those things fall off now because I'm an OB. And now I am regarded as an international figure that will be performing anywhere in the world. Even when I went to work in Paris, already they knew who I was. So all these things fall off. So that's what the awards are about.
Yeah,
and
wonderful.
The awards also encourage you to do better, to do much work harder, higher quality, so that you could be recognized. That is why in America, you hear so many actors saying, I'm a Tony Award nominee. I'm an Oscar Award
Even
nominee.
that is significant, Well, I mean,
that is incredibly significant.
Well, you've got like a golden visa now, and you just can't transfer it to us, unfortunately. So well done to you. Just as we end, if I can, just one word for you to describe your success. Not even a sentence, just one word in terms of why you think you've been successful.
Single-mindedness and knowing exactly my journey and where I want to go. Cut out the noise and focus on making this a success. Prove it to myself, prove it to my community, and prove it to anyone who wants to follow in my footsteps that it is possible.
You see, this is what happens to any good actor. You get them say one word, they take 3 sentences, but the single-mindedness absolutely sticks out. John Carney, great chatting to you. I'll say Sir John Carney just for the fun of it because it just sounds so good. Much appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll celebrate more wins from yourself and the people that you impact as well. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Great way to end the show. We'll have a podcast of that. Do follow our WhatsApp channel, just 0614 104 107. If you just message us, we'll send you the links right away. That's the show. We'll do it again tomorrow. Greg Host now takes over. It's just gone 6 o'clock. Then it's Jimmy's chance.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Visitor visits scene of fatal Northern Cape crash and ANC vows a comeback.